Welcome to the SignWriting Symposium 2015. This is day 4. We've had an excellent symposium this year, and I want to thank Adam Frost, our technician. As you can see, the little windows at the bottom of your screen. Thank you, Adam. And thank you, Steve Slavinsky, for all your help with the slides and for your excellent presentations in the past couple of days. And now I'm here to welcome James Shepard Cagle. James is a person I have known. We were just talking about it. I think I've known James and his wife, Dr. Judy Shepard Cagle, since 1976. So we've had a long communication about sign writing and writing sign languages in general. And now I'd like James to tell you about it. Let me just give you the title of his presentation. It's called What Three Little Pigs and a Hungry Wolf Can Teach Us About Sign Language Grammar. James works with Nicaraguan Sign Language. Tell us about it, James.
Well, we've been involved in Nicaragua since 1986, and my wife went down there initially for as a consultant for the Nicaraguan Ministry of Education. They had set up a school in Managua and brought in several hundred, I believe, deaf kids. It was an oralist school, but a sign language emerged. It was considered somewhat of a linguistic phenomenon at the time. It's an event that's studied in colleges, really all over the world at this point. For the first several years, our organization, which is Nicaraguan Sign Language Projects, was pursuing research into the emergence of the language itself. So it was primarily or really an entirely scientific venture. In 1994, late 94, that shifted dramatically into an intervention project, which at the time was centered in Bluefields, Nicaragua, which is on the Atlantic side of the country. Intervention meaning that we shifted from documenting the emergence of the language, from studying the grammar of the language, to fostering the nationalization of the language. That is to say, the language had become vibrant, and a vibrant deaf community had emerged in Managua, the capital city on the west coast. Our goal was to take that language and give it to deaf people, and particularly children, in other parts of the country, so that these kids would not grow up languageless, in effect. We're not the only organization, obviously, that does that. The Nicaraguan Deaf Association that emerged in the late 80s is involved in that. I believe there are a number of other organizations that take part in that. I'm not going to really go into all of that now. My focus is going to be on our proposal or concept that not only the language needs to be spread, but deaf children need to know about their language. And as I go from slide to slide, I'll flesh out what I mean by that. I should warn you that we have a bunny rabbit in my house that apparently has eaten through the cable for this computer. I am now down to 77%. I'm hoping this lasts the full hour. I'll certainly, when it gets very low, give you all a warning.
Okay, so, good. And so do you want Steve to show a slide?
Slide number 2.
Okay, we need to see slide number 2, and Adam needs to show it. There we go.
I'm looking at slide number 1 there.
Okay, I'm seeing slide number 2.
It's called our Sign Languages, Even Languages.
There we go. That's what we're looking at, yes.
Okay, it's not what I'm seeing on the bottom of the screen, but maybe it doesn't matter.
It's okay. Are we seeing, what scribe, well, all right. I need to see a slide 2. There we go. It says, our signed languages, even languages. Is that what we're supposed to see?
That's right. And
yes.
I know with this audience I'm preaching to the choir. I also know that a lot of the talks prior to now have been on very technical aspects of sign writing itself. I am, notwithstanding my occupation, somewhat of a Luddite when it comes to computers and high-tech things. I did get a smartphone last week, so I'm just learning how to use it. There have been times I wanted to smash it. But anyway,
I understand, James. I feel the same way.
so when I ask the question, are sign languages even languages? All right? I'm talking about the experiences that I've had in Nicaragua over this issue, but I'd be willing to bet that any one of you who are working as educators run into this all the time. Right? I would tell you, because I'm with linguists I've worked with linguists, I don't consider myself one of them, that obviously linguists will tell us that sign languages obviously are languages, you know, and linguists will say it, but in my experience, most people don't actually believe it. And in fact, teachers in general don't really believe it. And truth be told, my experience that teachers in deaf schools, well, they know the linguists say it is, so they give the company line. And they say, of course it's a language, okay? But they don't really believe it either. At least they're not fully convinced. And I hear a lot, it's a language, but it's an inferior language. Right? And when asked to define that, they say, well, the vocabulary is very limited. Of course, there's no real grammatical structure. It's not a particularly sophisticated or complex system. I hear it a lot. Okay? And I got to assume, I don't hear it from everybody, to be fair, but I do hear it. And I got to assume that if that's the way teachers of the deaf are feeling, then there are a lot of deaf people themselves who only half believe that their language is, in fact, a complex, sophisticated language. Okay, so I go to the next slide. I think we have an international audience here, but in the United States, we have an expression that when you're from Missouri, Missouri is called the show me state. Okay? If you can't show me why sign languages are at a par with speech-driven languages, well, you know, if you can't teach it, you don't know it. Which brings us to an interesting point from my perspective. Hearing school children are taught metalinguistic skills in elementary school. 4th grade, 5th grade, a lot in the 6th grade. Deaf children, interpreters, teachers of the deaf, on the other hand, are almost never taught metalinguistic skills. Okay? Go to the next slide, and I will tell you that it's only within the past year or so I've even heard the term metalinguistic skills. I had no idea what that meant, but I do have a definition for it, which is a highfalutin or fancy way of saying someone is aware of how language is constructed.
Okay.
Is it being able to discuss grammatical rules, using labels? That is my simple definition of it. My wife's is a linguist as well, you know, that's not really the actual definition, but close enough. Right? All that means was when I was in grade school, we had to learn what nouns were, what verbs, adjectives, adverbs. We did something called diagramming sentences. We learned participles and relative clauses and infinitives and prepositions and conjunctions and on and on and on. Now, you don't have to know those terms to speak English or Spanish or Dutch or whatever. 5-year-olds don't know those terms, and they're quite fluent. Okay? You can go your whole life without knowing those terms. But part of the 4th and 5th grade experience is to learn those terms so you can swear you'll never ever have to do that again. That's something that hearing kids go through. Okay?
Yes.
Deaf kids do not. Oh, they're introduced to that concept when they're learning the dominant speech-driven language, but they don't learn it about sign language in general. Let me go to the next slide. My ivory tower. Sign language linguists, I'm married to one, discuss grammar labels that apply to sign languages. They talk about classifiers and clitics and spatial verbs and locative objects. But I got to tell you, outside of them, nobody or very few people have any knowledge of what these terms mean. They don't use these labels. Teachers of the deaf don't use these labels. In my experience, interpreters, sign language interpreters, don't know these labels. And I think there's a shift now, and you can all claim I'm wrong, but my experience in any event is they don't know these. Certainly in Nicaragua, they don't know what these terms are. And I would then ask, well, if you want deaf children to be treated like hearing children, and I think that's a given that they ought to be, and hearing children are made to feel miserable over these terms in their language, why can't deaf kids be made miserable too? Okay, let's go to the next slide.
I like that.
And then, of course, I've actually heard sign language is not a language, not in the true sense, because real languages, can be written, right? Okay, I'm talking to the sign writing crowd, so we all know that sign languages can be written. So I'm not going to go into that at all. Right? I am going to talk a little bit about how we think we can integrate sign writing in a course to teach school children about grammar of their signed language. So let's go to the next slide. I'm down to 69%, so that's not bad on my power here.
Good.
This is something I talk about a lot, okay, in Nicaragua, which is that it's all about respect. And to put it another way, it's about self-respect, okay? You cannot demand equality in a system if you personally don't feel you're entitled to it, right? And in the end, the people who will advocate for the rights of deaf people are deaf people, because if they don't do it, nobody else will. And they're not going to do it until they have sufficient self-esteem or self-respect to believe that they're entitled to it, right? So one of the reasons in Nicaragua we were advocating in the programs we had, whether they were language clinics, and sometimes we actually got involved in running schools, was that the teachers would always be deaf, or there'd be a hearing teacher teamed up with a deaf teacher. The concept being that children, deaf children would, or hearing children too, would see deaf adults in positions of authority. Right? Again, that's about respect. One of the reasons we focused a lot on sign writing is that sign languages can be written. It's demonstrated our respect for the language. Right? Anyway, a deaf child who ultimately becomes a deaf adult has got to be convinced the sign languages are bona fide members of the human language club. Right? Self-respect is empowering. Empowered individuals demand respect from others. Anybody who's involved in any minority group in any society that's trying to get respect knows what I'm talking about. Let me go a little bit into our research methodology, which is that we spent years videotaping deaf Nicaraguans with first language fluency. I said on the slide it says ISN fluency. ISN stands for Nicaraguan Sign Language, or in Spanish, Idioma de Señas de Nicaragua. Okay? We would present drawings, we present cartoons without any speech involved in order to elicit sentences and narratives. Sometimes we just ask people to describe personal experiences, or they show us a sign, I go, well, use it in a sentence. We would film these, we would transcribe them using sign writing. Not all of it, to be sure. And now we have to go back and digitize all these things because technology has caught up with us. Okay. We would go to the next slide. We would analyze recordings and transcriptions. We're looking for grammatical patterns. Okay? We would compare input from multiple sources to confirm consistent patterns. What I mean by that is if we see a particular form of grammar that we can identify, we've got to see it in a whole lot of people before we say, well, this is actually a part of Nicaraguan Sign Language. Okay?
That's a good idea.
I do want to give special thanks, and you're going to see pictures of her as we go along, to Saida Perales. Rocha, who's from Managua. I don't know if she was born deaf, but she's certainly prelingually deaf. So Nicaraguan Sign Language is her first language and her native language. She's now a teacher, by the way.
Mm.
But she came up. We brought her up from Nicaragua to Maine, and we worked for 2 seasons with her, many months. She was one of our primary informants, but not the only one. And again, we did not want to produce a textbook about the grammar of SIDA. We want to produce a textbook about the grammar of Nicaraguan Sign Language. So anything that went in there, it might be SIDA as the primary informant, but it's all backed up. The other reason we like SIDA is that until we brought her to the U.S., she didn't have any ASL at all. There's always some concern as how much is the Nicaraguan Sign Language, how much is it contaminated by American Sign Language? And the answer is languages borrow. It's what they do. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Again, it's not what this presentation is about. But SIDA, any ASL SIDA had was ASL that had been borrowed by Nicaraguan Sign Language. So that's why she was useful. All right, next slide. I also want to thank Yuri Shepherd-Kegel. That's my daughter, but she is also born in Bluefields. We adopted her when she was 15. She's the narrator in our story of the 3 little pigs. It was a 6-minute presentation she just gave, and then I went and transcribed it into sign writing. And this lecture is going to be pulling grammar primarily from that source. Right? Obviously, Nicaraguan Sign Language is her first language. On the other hand, she has lived in the United States for 9 years now. She is bilingual in Nicaraguan and American Sign Language. In the textbook we produce, we do not use Yuri as an informant. We use her as an actress. That is to say, if I need a sign produced, and the one I took in Nicaragua is too blurry, I have her redo it. We don't use her as a primary informant because the reality is she's got a code shift back and forth between American Sign Language and Nicaraguan Sign Language, and for scientific reasons, it just wouldn't be valid. Okay. We're going to go to the next slide. I mentioned it before, ISN. I see it sometimes as NSL, for Nicaraguan Sign Language.
Yeah.
My apologies to the Dutch. But we always use ISN. That's what the Deaf Association wants us to use, and so we will defer to them. Okay? I had mentioned about Nicaraguan Sign Language borrowing ASL. We didn't see a lot of that in the beginning as the language was forming. One of the reasons is that the deaf people themselves took pride in the fact that a language is emerging. They did not want to contaminate it with other languages. But as they had more confidence in their language, they were more willing to grab lexicon from other areas. And that was a phenomenon in the late 80s and early 90s. But the other thing that happened is a major geopolitical change as well. Nicaragua and the United States, you know, in the 80s, for those of you who can remember or not just studied it, or old enough to know, were effectively at war. So you didn't have deaf people from the United States, or really much of anybody from the United States, just going down to Nicaragua just to hang out. But you do now. And because you have a vibrant deaf community there, that attracts deaf people from other countries. And that means there's contamination. On top of that, you have the explosion of technology. You know, interpreters on TV, interpreters on the internet, the kind of thing we're doing right now. All of that impacts it. That's what languages do. That's how languages grow. They're dynamic or they die. Moving along, we're on the next slide. Are all sign languages similar? And the answer is yes. And it has to be that way because deaf people are flesh and blood. And all human languages are more similar than they are dissimilar. And since deaf people, I believe, are human, then I have to say their language is going to be very similar to the general human language family as well. Right? That said, all sign languages are visually based. Most sign languages are speech based. Right? There are differences. Chiefly, signers are able to exploit the signing space and the various grammatical strategies, I'm just reading the slide here, to express spatial relationships in a way that speech-driven languages cannot. We're going to talk about that more as I go through this. Okay? But you don't see a lot of classifiers in English. You do see a lot of classifiers in sign languages. Right? The classifier set in ASL is not the same as the classifier set in ISL, but they're still classifiers. A classifier is a classifier is a classifier, you know? Just like the word for run in Spanish is correr, whereas in English it's run, but they're both verbs. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. By the way, I should warn people, I do not sign American Sign Language, and therefore when you see a word, when I see a sign in Nicaraguan that someone might recognize as borrowed, I won't recognize it. I have somebody else who knows ASL has to say, hey, that's an ASL term. I'm going, yeah, well, it was probably borrowed, or it's so transparent, it's probably just a coincidence. Anyway, I hear a lot the word iconicity. In fact, I went to a lecture, a linguistic lecture, some months ago, where everyone was talking about how iconic Nicaraguan Sign Language was, or American Sign Language was. Okay? Which is fine. I know a lot of people use that word. Judy and I cringe when we hear that sign language is iconic. Okay? And we would argue that Nicaraguan Sign Language is most definitely not iconic. And the example I give is you hold up 5 fingers, and most of us figure, that's 5 objects there. That's probably the number 5. Okay? But when you see a sign, I just give the sign here for tree. That does not look like a tree to me. That looks like a bunch of SignWriting symbols to me, frankly.
Well, that too.
Okay? Now, I can understand how the sign resembles a tree, but that's not iconic. Let's go to the next slide. It highlights this. This is out of the 3 Little Pigs, which is our primary source for this lecture. And you see Yuri there putting her hand on her face and doing things with her hand. And for those of you, which would be all of you, I guess, who can read the sign writing, that does not look like a wolf to me. That looks like sign writing. But the shadow, I would argue that shadow does look kind of like a wolf. That's what we mean by iconic.
Ah, I see.
Ah, yeah, here's the difference.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. So we talk a lot about resemblance. Okay? Signs, in some way, they tend to look like a prominent feature or features associated with the concept they represent. Okay? Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's abstract. Right? So the wolf there, the long nose, the pointed ears, those are features of a wolf. Okay? So the sign in that sense resembles the wolf because we think those prominent features. Of course, I could use bushy tail, I could use sharp teeth, a lot of things I could use. Right? What difference does it really make whether we use the term resemblance or use the term iconic? And the problem is that if Nicaraguan Sign Language or French Sign Language, whatever sign language you're using, was truly iconic, then what you'd say is the language is a sequence of pictures. And when non-signers hear that your language is nothing more than a series of pictures, there they go. Well, then that's not really a language. It's communication, to be sure, but it's not what we associate with a language. And that might make some sense, except that Nicaraguan Sign Language, or any sign language that I'm aware of, they're not a series of pictures. They're not iconic at all. So that's where we use the term. We avoid the term. And if I've done nothing else but convince you never to use that term again, my wife will be happy. Let's go to the next one. This is initialization, which again, in the grammar of language, of sign language, is an important concept. Right? And certainly in Nicaragua, we see signs that are initialized. And the example I gave here is adult, which is like that. And again, I've heard that that's an ASL sign.
Is it, Adam?
It's a signed exact English sign
Oh.
within ASL relation. So it is, but it isn't. It gets complex.
Of course, the Spanish word for adult is also adult. It's adulto, so the initials are going to be the same if it's initialized. Okay? In any event, what I found interesting is that in Yuri, in her 6-minute rendition of the Three Little Pigs, the only initialized sign in the whole thing was adult. So if you look at a list of vocabulary, you're going to find a fair number of initialized words. But in practice, not that much. Let's go to the next slide. Right? In Yuri's story, she talks about the mother pig with her 3 little pigs. Okay? And she used this sign for mama, which is not an initialized sign. It is the sign for mother in Nicaragua. Saida makes it with an M here, so she initializes it. So that's a shift that we've seen within Nicaragua, and I can go on and on about what that's all about. But the bottom line is the upper crust death. Try to show off, and we'll initialize signs. Okay.
Huh.
And others will initialize those signs as well when they're in the presence of the elite. And when I turn to them and say, do you actually initialize that when you just talk to people on the street? And they go, oh, God, no. So,
Interesting.
Okay, I mentioned that because I'll bet others in other countries you're seeing the same sort of phenomenon. Let's go to the next one. I don't know. I stole that off the Google.
I think the baby's cute.
Yes, I didn't take that picture, so whoever has the copyright, my sincere apologies.
It's fine.
The initialization, I would say, certainly is an advantage for Spanish speakers who are trying to memorize the signs, but those would be hearing people. One could make the argument that since you want deaf kids to learn the dominant speech-driven language, initialization might help them make the transfer too. I'm not so sure that's true. But in any event, what I am sure about is for children, with the exception of babies who can read Spanish, initializing Nicaraguan signs does not have anything to do with the way the child acquires language. Okay. That brings me to the next slide. Is it gesturing or is it signing? Right? Good storytellers in spoken languages enhance their narratives with gestures. That is, throw some emotion into it. Facial expression, a shrug of the shoulders, intonation. Okay? So good storytellers in sign languages use gestures for the same purposes, although, of course, signs do have their origins in a lot of gestures. So what's the difference between gesturing or signing? We go to the next slide. And we think function. A sign is composed of many elements. Each one of those elements is meaningless by itself, but together it represents a concept. It's like words are composed of letters. Components of signs or grammar. Right? So you look at the signs, it's going to have a hand shape orientation, hand motion, eye gazing, facial expression. Right? But you can supplement those with gestures. We'll go to the next slide, and we'll take a slice out of the Three Little Pigs story, and I'll show you what I mean. And just so you know, I don't steal all pictures without complying with copyright issues. I did get permission for this one.
That's fine.
All right, so gestures make communications more vivid, okay? But they're not integral to the signs. Just like I can talk in a monotone and put you all to sleep, but it's still English. All right, so here we have the pig saunters. And you can see how Yuri is doing it, but this is the sign for pig. This is sauntering. Actually, she goes like this. See the difference?
Oh, yeah, you can see it, yeah.
All
I
right.
can read that.
All
And
right.
her shoulder is going up and down, too.
So let's go to the next slide and have a closer look at this. I got my handy microscope.
Ah, yeah. That's cute.
Anyhow, and all right, so let's go to the next one. You might want to flip back and forth. In fact, go back to the microscope, and I'll just read the next one. So go back one. There you go. All right, so we look at our microscope here. We see a downward eye gaze. We see a person by legs classifier. That's a classifier hand shape. We see an ambling movement of the hand shape. These are all components of the sign for saunter. Okay? Moving your shoulders back and forth is not. That's a body movement that Yuri's thrown in there that supplements her signing. It certainly makes it more vivid. That's what we mean by a gesture. Okay? Let's jump over to slide number 24, which has the little cartoon on it. There you go. So another challenge I get. It's all pantomime. Or is it signing? Pantomime, by definition, is an act without words, but with gestures and bodily movements only. Right? So clearly sauntering, that was hand shape orientation, and classifier and eye gazing. All right, so that's not pantomiming. There's a bona fide sign. But a lot of these signs that you might think are pantomiming, when we look at them under our microscope, they're not. So here we have a circle sign, which is the man moving the push cart. Okay? This is man like so, and you can see there he's moving it. Man is clearly a sign. Right? Question is this pantomime, or does that rate as a sign? So let's go to the next. Right? And we see, looking at it close up, it's made with what we call a handling classifier. Okay? That's a technique that Yuri employs frequently when she needs to produce a sign on the spot. Couldn't tell you what the sign for card is. There may not actually be one in that sense, but she just uses a handling classifier to signify it, which means she's produced a sign. Let's go to the next slide. All right, we have an ISN grammar rule then. In a verb of motion or location, the eyes follow or gaze at the classifier serving as the theme. So I think you know what eyes following means. I guess you know what a verb of motion is. I'm not sure if you know what a verb of location is. I'm not going to explain that just now. We've got a word labeled classifier. Well, we ought to explain what that is. And we've got another one called theme. See, a lot of labels in this one little handling classifier she produced. So let's go to the next. Classifiers abound in Nicaraguan Sign Language. Classifiers abound in sign languages. There shouldn't be any interpreter out there or any teacher of the deaf who can't define what a classifier is. Although in my experience in Nicaragua, they're just beginning to understand these concepts. Our argument, of course, is that deaf children should be able to tell you, oh, well, let me explain to you what a classifier is. But classifier hand shapes incorporated into the verbs are used to show appearance, location, and/or movement. After a signer indicates some particular thing, a classifier can be used to show where the thing is located, what it looks like, and where and how it moves. In the case of a physical object, the classifier may resemble its surface feature, depth, or general shape. I'm not going to give you a grammar lesson here, but very basically, it's a flat hand shape, so it's a classifier for anything with a flat surface. Okay? That's a rounded rock type of classifier. I think this is the classifier for a vehicle in American Sign Language, although I'm not sure. In Nicaragua, we see this hand shape for a vehicle.
What slide should we be on? Are we on the slide for classifiers?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
But moving right along, and we're down to 43%.
Okay, so Steve, if you go to the next slide, I guess. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Classifiers in the quote, paraphrase Governor Romney, are people too.
Oh, dear.
Classifiers can represent living things, especially people. You know, two-legged person walking along.
Yeah. Yes.
There are two rules when you use classifiers. One, it relates back to an already specified person or thing, kind of like a pronoun does. You can't have a pronoun if it doesn't relate back to a noun. Right? And the second is the classifier becomes part of a verb that shows where and how the person or thing moves. So that's a basic definition, but we're going to see that close up. So let's go to the next one. Go back to this. So we have a handling classifier relates back to the identified person. Right? So what was the antecedent? It was the man. It was the noun. So when you see the handling classifier like this, whose hands? Well, it's the man's hands. How do I know that? Because I already told you. So that's the basic rule of the classifier, is that there's got to be an antecedent noun, usually in the same sentence, but not necessarily. Another example, when I said this is a vehicle, well, what is it? Is it a taxi? Is it a bicycle? Is it a horse? Is it a train? Well, I've already told you that earlier in the sentence, or maybe in the sentence before. But if I just went like this, that's meaningless, and my mind won't process it, nor will the deaf viewer. You got to tell them beforehand. This is not rocket science, because if it were, I would do it. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, this is also from The Three Little Pigs, as in almost all my examples. The old man carries a heavy bale of straw on his back. The signs in red are handling classifiers. Okay, this is him holding it tight. They're just freezing it, pointing to the back. There's the straw, and that's how he's handling it. Huh? How do we know whose hands it is? Because before all of that, I said the man. If I said the old man, or Yuri did. So I would point out the dictionaries that I have seen of Nicaraguan Sign Language have roughly about 1,000 or so signs in them. The Nicaraguan Deaf Association has one with, I think, 1,300 signs. The one we produced last year is 875, but the new one will have about 1,100. But it doesn't mean anything, you know. There are lots more signs that could go into the dictionary, but when you consider that it's a productive language, okay, well, then the number of potential signs is just infinite. So when someone asks how many signs are there, and they go, well, there are only 1,000 signs according to the little dictionary I got. So if I bought an English dictionary that had 200 words in it, you wouldn't think English had 200 words.
Exactly. Exactly.
But it is also not as productive as sign languages are. So because it's a productive language, you can't exactly produce a dictionary with this, but you're going to hit 30,000, 40,000 words immediately, or however many signs you need. Okay, move on to the next slide. And we have a speech-driven versus sign languages. Right, there's SIDA there, taking advantage of three-dimensional space. Speech-driven languages can't do that. Sign languages can. Let's go to the next. Okay. So I have object of a preposition versus a locative object. I certainly know what an object of a preposition was because I went to the 4th grade. I haven't a clue what a locative object was. I never heard such a thing. Okay? In Nicaraguan Sign Language, you have action and spatial relationships. That is from, to, on, at, so forth. They're all merged within a spatial verb. So, the grammatical term object of the preposition is not applicable because we tend not to use prepositions. I'm not going to say they don't have prepositions in the language because they do. But by and large, when we talk about spatial relationships, the cup is on the table. The man puts the cup on the table. Okay? We use a preposition and an object of the preposition in English. You don't have preposition in Nicaraguan Sign Language, therefore you don't have an object of the preposition. This is why hearing people get so confused trying to master the sign language. This is why deaf people get so confused trying to figure out where all these prepositions and prepositional objects are. Right? All right. The object of there's still an object in that sentence, though. It's not a direct object. That's an English term or a Spanish term. We call it a locative object. That is, it's used to describe a sign that specifies a location. Let's go to the next. So what is the next?
Next slide, Steve.
Yeah.
There we go. Spatial verbs.
I got to find online. Here we go.
Okay.
Spatial verbs that show direction of movement are called directional verbs. Again, a new label to learn. Directional verbs show source location, another label. Okay, to depart. Depart from Boston, so that was the source. Goal location. To touch, I touched the book, so my goal of touching is the book. Or maybe I take the cup from the refrigerator and put it on the table. So I got a source location and a goal location. Right? But the verb is called a spatial verb because it's defining a spatial relationship. Right? I've also heard it called an applicative verb. It's bad enough to have to learn one new label. Now you got another label that tells me the same thing. And therefore the object within the applicative verb is called an applied object. And how do you make an applied object? With a classifier clitic. Now there's a mouthful. And nothing else, you can impress your friends with talking about classifier clitics. So, what did I just do? I go to the next slide.
Mm-hmm. We have it. Go ahead.
We're analyzing the three little pigs here to learn labels in the grammar. Within the spatial verb, we have a grounded object which has to precede the moving figure. I bold-face those things because those are new labels. I don't even know what they mean yet, but there's a rule. Right? So the word order within the verb is object, subject, verb. You know, learning English and Spanish too, we're thinking subject, verb, object all the time. You learn Latin, it's the verb at the end. Right? In Nicaraguan Sign Language, in any event, when we're doing spatial relationships, we normally see the verb at the end. And the sentence structure tends to be object, subject, verb, or more accurately, an object, a subject, and a spatial verb. And within the spatial verb, we always see a word order that's object, subject, verb. Okay? We will sometimes see the sentence come out as subject, object, spatial verb versus object, subject, spatial verb. But within the spatial verb itself, the word order is always consistent. Okay? When signing a spatial verb with a source location or a goal location or both, your eyes follows the moving figure. It has to. This eye gazing we call smooth pursuit. When we were filming Saida and eliciting sentences from her, she told us that eye gaze had nothing to do with the grammar, that she didn't practice it herself. So we then played back the last 10 sentences we had elicited, and she uses eye gazing every single time.
Of course.
Okay, so let's go to the next. Directional spatial verbs. So we have all sorts of fun labels. Grounded object, a moving figure, a source location, a goal location, a classifier clitic, and smooth pursuit. These are all labels that I just brought up. Okay? I should go into detail with them, but I only got 16 minutes left and 32% power. I'm just making a point here that one ought to know the labels of one's grammar. Because I think you have more self-respect for your language when you realize, oh my God, this is complicated. And your teachers, who by now, you're hearing people are now walking out of the room going, we did not sign up to learn all this stuff.
It's okay.
That's the point. By the way, she's signing there the butterfly lands on the flower. And I'm looking at the word order here, and I see the flower comes first. There's your object, and there's your butterfly comes next, and then lands on the flowers last. In our programs, we have always written sign language left to right as opposed to from top down. Okay? There are logistics reasons for that in the nature of the old-fashioned computer programming I was using.
Yeah, James was using SignWriter DOS, just so you all know, because James and I worked together way back in 1996 and earlier. So that's the reason. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, James being James essentially still does.
Okay.
But also, quite frankly, we took a vote in the class, and this is what they wanted to do. I go, fine, whatever. But so this is written left to right for us. Let's go to the next slide. When we talk about clitics, we never talk about clitics in English. Again, this is something I never heard of before. Our minds see two different signs separated by a very weak boundary. That's a Judy explanation. That's my wife. Okay. The grounded object classifier, I know what that is a clitic. So what's a classifier clitic? It simply means that while the classifier carries its own meaning, it cannot function as a separate sign. Instead, the classifier must be linked with the verb. Okay? And the way our sign for a classifier clitic, which is illustrative, it's you got your hand shapes, you got one here, you got another hand shape there, and you bring this one over. That's the clitic. This is the clitic. All right, let's go to the next slide. Wow, I'm down to 29%.
You're doing great.
I know. I'm going to make this. Okay,
yes.
So I'm just right. So going back to the three little pigs, because again, that's our source for all the grammar of this lecture. The wolf looks up, has an idea, climbs the house, climbs onto the roof. That's chock full of grammar. Okay? But give you a chance to read all that, because you can read these signs, I guess. But we're going to focus here on the next slide, because we're going to just talk right now about the spatial verb. Right? The word order within this whole sentence is subject, object, verb. Right? Usually I see object, subject, verb. I've said that before. The exception being that when a subject is topicalized. And since we're really talking about the wolf comes first. So in this sentence structure, even though it's showing a spatial relationship, the subject is preceding the object. It is, in fact, a compound sentence. All right, so it begins with what we call a plain verb construction. In English, that would be subject, verb, object. John hit Mary. Or Mary hit John. Be politically correct. Mary hit John back. Over.
Okay.
We see the wolf first. Sign for wolf. And I saw him climbing up the house. But we're going to focus on his jumping on the roof, which really talks. There's a spatial relationship. Okay? And that's a spatial verb construction. So let's go to the next slide and have a good look at this. That's just the spatial verb. The classifier clitic is in red.
Mm-hmm.
It is a flat surface classifier. What is the flat surface? It's the roof. How do we know that's the roof? Because we had preceded it with the sign for house. Okay?
I see.
All right. Now, the roof doesn't move. It is anchored or grounded. It is fixed. Right? Mm-hmm. So it's the grounded object within the spatial verb. We're going to show a spatial relationship vis-a-vis this roof. Let's go to the next slide. And now we have some more components of the directional spatial verb, to wit, the moving figure, also known as the theme. We see in green a person by arms classifier, or person by legs classifier, with his legs, but he jumps on all four, so it's all whatever. Anyway, it's the moving figure classifier. It relates back to a noun. What noun? Well, a living creature. If it's the person by arms and legs classifier, that would be the wolf, which was the very first sign in our sentence. Okay? This classifier is the subject within the spatial verb. Right? The subject within the spatial verb is the theme. What it is, or who's doing it, the wolf's doing it. All right, let's go to the next. Another component of the spatial verb is the movement from the source or to the goal location, or both. The movement here is in blue, as are the contact symbols. Contact in English is done with a preposition. He climbs on the roof. He stands on the roof. But in Nicaraguan Sign Language, that prepositional concept on is merged with the verb jumps. When we say the cup is on the table, is on is in fact the verb. It's not is, it's not on, it's is on. All right. And of course, as the sign writing shows, there's a staring here because you got to be staring at the classifier on legs to see what he's doing. As you watch it go, as you watch the wolf go from a source location out there, so there really is no source location, just elsewhere, but to a goal location. The goal location being touching the roof. You've got three components here. You've got a classifier that's serving as the theme. You've got a grounded object, which is produced with a classifier clitic, so that's the two classifiers in the same verb. And you have the movement and contact itself, which is actually the verb form, the verb component of the spatial verb. Isn't that cute?
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
Okay, so we go to the next slide. I'm going to allow a little bit of a question and answering before we run out of time and or power.
Yes, we have about 5 minutes left or so. That's right.
So I just point out that we barely scratched the surface in this one little lecture, and I list a whole bunch of terms, but I can easily list about 30 terms, labels that people ought to know about. So just a real quick list here. Serial verbs, by the way, are real common in Nicaraguan Sign Language, not so much in other sign languages. Anyway, let's go to the next slide. Can the grammar of a sign language be taught in a workshop? I've tried.
And you failed? Is that what you just said? Uh-huh.
You cannot do it. Okay? Just too much.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yes.
You can only handle so much. So, you know, you go for about an hour, maybe 2 hours, and people are nodding off. Series of
yes. But on the other hand, this presentation is remarkable because it's documenting the grammar aspects, and I think it's a brilliant presentation because most people don't know this, James. So go ahead and yes.
And we've only scratched the surface with terms that really should go back and talk about and flesh out in detail, which I can't do in an hour.
No, we can't, and I want a few minutes to tell you about some comments I have for you.
I'm almost done here.
Okay, it's outstanding.
So that's why I say you need a series of workshops, which is another way of saying you need a whole course. Next slide, why do we do it? Same reason I said at the very beginning, respect. You teach grammar to teach respect for the signer. You learn to write the sign language because that teaches respect for the signer, and of course, the ultimate goal with children is to empower them. You begin with self-respect. And then we go to my last slide, because I know you're all saying is, okay, so you're producing sign language grammar books. Where can I get a hold of a sign language grammar book, American Sign Language, or French Sign Language, or Turkish Sign Language that can be used not at the college or graduate school level, but that children and teachers will understand? And that picture, you know, as well, you know, having come up with this notion, I guess I have to go out and do it. But that's what we've been working on. It's really an arduous process.
Yes.
But we're making headway.
It is brilliant. Now, is this the end of your slides?
my last slide. And
Okay.
I might want to.
I'm sure you all agree this is a remarkable presentation. I want to thank you because I suspect you may have worked a little bit with Dr. Judy Shepard-Cagle, your wife. You mentioned her many times. And I want to thank you for all these terms because, you know, a lot of people may not realize that classifiers didn't just come out of the sky. I remember back in 1976 when I first met you and Judy, James, that Judy was working on research on classifiers. Isn't that correct?
She was, and her thesis was on locatives, I think.
Uh-huh. I remember she was one of the pioneering researchers and linguists who worked with these new subjects. At the time, it was a very, very new idea that sign languages might have grammar.
Yes,
So,
but to paraphrase Dr. Strangelove, what good is it if you don't tell the world? So,
what good is it if you don't tell the world, is what you just said.
Right.
By the way, I'm hoping to have these presentations interpreted. And I will have interpreters side by side. I'll get another video where they'd listen to you, and then we'd have the ASL next to you, and maybe we could do a Nicaraguan Sign Language version of your presentation today as well, if we can. And I want everyone to know that on your webpage, your presentation webpage 50, in the SignWriting Symposium presentation pages, we have 2 videos of Barney, and he's showing. I guess he's signing in Nicaraguan Sign Language, isn't he? He's a deaf person, and he's teaching some grammar points to people. Isn't that correct? I think Steve.
He's just introducing some of these concepts.
It's excellent, and so we can't show it today because there's not enough time. But people who have witnessed this can go to the webpage and view those videos, James. And I want you to know that Stefan Vorman is one of your biggest fans. He just wrote and wanted you to know that he wanted to send his greetings, and he said, James has been of great influence in my personal history to develop decent sign writing skills, and in the past we have had some kind of exchange on the Sign Writing List forum, and he's been following your work since 1999. So I thought you should know that. And they're working in, you know, in Germany, they have, now with Stefan Vorman's influence, they have software where you can just type from left to right with sign writing. So if you ever want to try Deleg software for Nicaraguan Sign Language, you might, it's more modern than SignWriter DOS.
I guess everybody can see how we integrate sign writing into all this. You really
Oh,
can.
you do. Beautiful. Beautiful. And Adam, what do you think? You're a teacher of sign language linguistics and American Sign Language. Isn't this an excellent presentation?
Yeah, it's really good. And you're exactly right. A lot of people do not know this, and as Valerie mentioned, I do teach American Sign Language linguistics at a community college, and they just added that as a requirement for the interpreting program.
That's great. Congratulations, Adam. I didn't know that, and believe me, Adam's the only one who could teach the course. So I think that this presentation gives people an idea of how grammars and sign languages in general function, not just for Nicaraguan Sign Language. Isn't that right, James?
Well, that's the point.
Yes.
Language is a language. They're all, you know, this is how all sign languages work.
I see. I think this is a meaningful presentation that we will refer to for years to come. Thank you very much. You know, James is presenting from a hotel. He's actually an airline pilot as well as a teacher. And as is written, I think James has written over 40, maybe 50 books in sign writing, where has written Nicaraguan Sign Language, and all kinds of stories for deaf children have been translated and written in Nicaraguan Sign Language. Isn't that correct?
Three Little Pigs being one of them.
That's right. And by the way, Ingvild Roald from Norway just said, really, really enjoyable presentation. Thank you, James.
Thank you.
You've got a following. There are all kinds of people writing messages. I'll send them to you later. And so I want to thank you for this presentation. And we have to go on to the next one. In the next minute, we're going to stop for an intermission. And our next presentation at the half hour is from Germany. It is about a group of people who are doing design of, you know, like it's software, it's sign type, the designing of a sign writing font. But it's more like making the symbols look pretty and different and have a different typeface, if you know what I mean. Can you imagine there might be a day when we not only write sign writing with the basic, style that we do right now, but imagine if you could get italics and you could get bold and, that kind of thing. So that's the next presentation from Germany. And thank you, James, and we'll be back with you because we're going to be interpreting your presentation later. And so I'll contact you when that's ready to go. Okay?
Great. It's been fun. Thank you for inviting me to do this.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. And thank you to Judy as well. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We'll be back, everybody, in a half hour. Bye-bye.
Dann ist es zu spät. Hello?
Hey, warum bin ich jetzt in Valerie Suttons Bild?
Nee, das ist
Yeah.
nicht mehr.
Hello, everybody. We are technically live. They're hearing us talk, but that's okay because they know we have to get set up.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear us?
Ah,
Okay.
Okay.
I want everybody to know that we're actually technically online right now. People are watching. Yes, I don't know how to do this in private, except I could write messages to you, but that's not going to help much. Yes, we have to stay online, even though we have an intermission. Otherwise, we lose the broadcast being flowed automatically into YouTube. So everybody will know this, and later on we're going to edit out, obviously, little times like this that are not a part of the real presentations. Hello, I think I see Janina, and is it Paul, or is this Joachim?
This is Paul, and I'm Joachim.
Oh, hello, and it's Joachim, that's correct, yes, I see Paul.
Correct.
Yes, very good. Well, you're side by side, too, I see that.
Yeah, we are sitting in front of two computers.
Okay. Well, this is why we need to talk. Sometimes when you have two computers, it's so. Yesterday I had a very difficult time. You know that my camera turned off. And I couldn't do anything about it, so I had a little picture of me up, but I still was talking to everybody. Things like this happen with computers. And when we're presenting live, sometimes if you have one computer next to the other, the sound actually creates a conflict. I'm sure you know so much about computer software. You probably know more than I do. But if for any reason you have a problem where your camera gets in a difficult state like mine yesterday, you can close down the broadcast and come back in if there's ever a real problem. But as it is right now, it seems nobody's making noises that I can hear you. I'm very glad to meet you, and I'm going to introduce you officially in 10 minutes. Do you have any visuals? I don't think I received any PowerPoints, or do you have one?
Yeah, we have it here on the one computer.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you're going to have one computer doing the PowerPoint, and
I can try it so that we know.
Well, just so you also know, at the time that we rehearsed, we didn't know this, but or I wasn't sure, let's put it that way, but Steve Slavinsky is here to help if you would like to have him show the slides and you only have one computer going, that would be okay too. Whatever's good for you. And Adam, who is not yet back from intermission, he will be essentially presenting this to everybody. So as you're talking, Adam makes whatever screen you're talking about big and live for the people who are watching us.
Okay.
You see what I mean? So I can see right now you have a screen on that says sign type.
Yeah,
now, those who are listening in during our intermission time, you may not be able to see that large at the moment. That's okay. You're probably hearing us talk, and I think they see we're coming back in 10 minutes kind of screen. So, but you can probably hear us talking about this, and that's okay. This is how this is how we put a production together. But I am seeing it, and it's very clear. So I'm sure that Adam can make sure that everybody sees these slides at the time that it happens. Okay. If you want to continue, this is perfect. Later on, I'd be grateful if you could send us the PowerPoint so that I can put it up on your presentation webpage. Have you seen I haven't even gotten to posting what you sent me yesterday, but there's a presentation webpage number 51, and everybody has a presentation webpage when they present at the symposium. And that's good, because then later on visitors can go visit and see your slides again if they want to, without actually looking at the video again. So it's like a support. So what else should we talk about? Is everybody able to get your mic working? I see Janine is here.
Okay.
And I see Paul. Let me see Paul. Hi.
Hey.
You're Paul, right? Yeah. So you're on the same computer. Is everybody on the same computer presenting? Is that I see. Well, that makes sense. That's simple. It's just that right now, just so you know, I don't believe we'll see all three of you at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, Janina.
I've recognized that before, yeah.
One time I did a presentation with Adam, and we were side by side, and I thought, oh, this is so cool, we can see each other in our own screen, and then I was cut off by half.
Yeah.
Other times he was cut off by half, so I'm not sure what people will be seeing, so that is kind of difficult. I wish, when one person is talking, is there a way to get your computer camera to move to that one person?
Yeah, we can do that. We can just.
Yeah, there we go. So let's say, yeah.
Yeah.
Come back. Yeah, so if you're saying something, Janina, then you could sort of get the camera on yourself, and then you would have to point it over back to Joachim. Go ahead, I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
Valerie, actually, I think like for the introduction of ourselves, like after you introduced us, maybe our screen can be big, and so people can see all three of us, and after that.
Yeah. In other words, the way this works is that I'm not running the show. Adam is.
Okay.
And Adam is coming back. Can you see down in the little windows where it says new if you click on new presentation, you can click on these windows to make one big or the other.
Yeah, we know.
Next presentation.
Yeah, that's what people are seeing right now, I believe. You out there, I think that's what you're seeing. It says there's 7 minutes and 48 or 46, 45 seconds left. Okay, when Adam comes back, this will be Adam's place. He will show up in that picture. And as you know, Adam is both hearing and deaf, and he is an interpreter and a teacher of sign linguistics. He's everything. He's a jack of all trades, as we say. And Adam will be choosing which screen is shown to the viewer. That's what I'm trying to tell you. He's running the actual administration of the project. So when I'm talking right now, you probably see me large. Is that right?
Yes.
Because we are just talking to each other, and it's not being administered by one person. It's just casual. So when you're talking, I'm seeing you. But if Steve were here and said something, all of a sudden he would show up, because the way Google Hangouts is designed, whomever's talking gets big unless somebody's administering the whole show. So yes, I agree that we have to see you full screen. The problem is, first of all, did you know some people are going to be watching this on their phones? And they have small screens. And so I'm afraid to say that we won't, even though you may have a very big screen on your computer, because I can stretch this and see all three of you. I'm afraid the Google Hangout recording is only going to be getting the person in the center. Right now, Joachim, you are very clear.
Okay.
It may be, and we essentially will see the right arm of Janina and the left arm of Paul.
Okay.
But that's okay. And we can explain that you're all at the same computer in the same room, and that, yeah, I can see that this is actually, I want you to know that I really like meeting you. I think it's fun that we can meet each other and we're on the other side of the world. Have you ever thought of that? I mean, it is absolutely cool, and it's so clear. I mean, for me, it looks like you're right here in my office in California.
In the evening, and there at your place, it's in the morning, right?
Yeah, here it is 9:30 in the morning, 9:24 in the morning. Yeah, and Steve is in Iowa, and he'll be here soon. And Steve that means he's in the middle of the country of the United States, so he's 2 hours later. So it's 11:30 for him. And for you, what time is it?
For us, it's now 6:30.
Yeah.
Almost, yeah.
In the evening, because you're 9 hours, I believe. Are you 9 hours ahead of us in California, I believe? Listen, I want you to know that I used to live in Denmark. Did you know that?
Yeah.
And I actually did some work in Hamburg. I'm talking about back in the 70s. I'm really old. I actually notated a few dances because, you know, I developed a way to write dance writing. This is just private and personal, but everybody can hear this. With the Hamburg Opera Ballet, John Neumeier.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, and a friend of mine was a dancer there. So And I think it's a beautiful city, but I don't know the University of Hamburg. That's why it's so exciting for me to think that SignWriting might be used a little bit in Hamburg. You're doing a lot of work, I know. I want to hear all about it. So do you have anything else to show besides your PowerPoint?
We have a video,
Mm-hmm.
but it will be on the same computer the slides are on now.
That's fine. That's
we can
fine.
switch there and show the video.
Yes, and I can see Steve must be in the background because he changed one of his screens to show your presentation web page. Can you see it there?
Yeah, now we see it.
There's Steve. Wave, Steve. we realize this is being recorded, but we'll cut this out later. I'm just a little worried, Steve, about the fact that we're only seeing half of Paul and half of Janina at the moment. How do we resolve that? Now we see Janina. And Paul, you got to move in a bit sometimes. Yeah, there we go. Ah, there. Now I can see all three.
You can do that or just shift in when you talk.
Yeah, just simply move in when you're talking. Yeah, this almost looks like a street video, you know, of somebody doing a dance or something. Well, anyway, Steve is the developer of SignPuddle software. I don't know how much you know about our work.
Yes.
And here is Adam Frost. Hello, Adam.
Hi, Adam.
Hello.
Hello.
Adam is an American, but he has taught SignWriting in Portugal. So we do feel connected very much to the world, and there's so many countries that work with us now, but Hamburg holds a special place in my heart. I think it's a beautiful city. And
nice. We actually thought about putting some images of Hamburg in the slides, but since you know it already...
But you know, the rest of the world may not, so...
Now
it's too late. Okay, that's all right. We could always add it later. I keep telling people that. I was just thinking in the last presentation, we do need interpreting, and we know that. And the issue last year when we had, so many hours, we had 8 hours a day presenting for 4 days. We had 32 hours of video recorded. Can you imagine that? And Adam actually donated his time to interpret in American Sign Language most of those hours. It was like a marathon of interpreting, but it was exhausting, and we couldn't get it perfect because there were so many other interruptions that interrupted the interpreting. So we decided this year to do the presentation just as we are, hearing people talking to each other, and then afterwards we're going to add interpreting. I'm thinking of getting a page and actually putting a separate video of the interpreting right side by side with the spoken language video.
Yeah.
So just know that we may be able to do it in German Sign Language as well. It's just a matter of funding. So you will be represented. Okay, Adam, you're going to start taking over. So you tell us when to start. Okay. Go for it. Okay. Well, we're about 2 minutes early, but I don't see why not. My name is Valerie Sutton, as you probably know, and this is the SignWriting Symposium 2015, Session 2 of Day 4. And today is July 24th, 2015. And we have 3 guests with us today from Hamburg, Germany, and they're going to tell us more about their connections with the university there. But first, when I am looking at the screen, it's over to my left, but on their right, we have Paul Rutrecht. Paul, you want to go into the screen and wave? We got to see your face. There we go, Paul. Nice to meet you, Paul. And Joachim Nitschke is in the center. I hope I pronounced your name properly.
Yes.
And Janina Lentfer is right there. Hello, Janina. And their presentation is named Sign Type, Designing a Signwriting Font, Ideas and Challenges. So tell us all about it, please.
Maybe in the beginning you could put us on the screen so that the people, when we introduce ourselves, can see us, and then later switch to the slides on the other.
That's right. And Adam, you have done that, haven't you? So everybody can see you. Yeah, you just don't realize what they're seeing.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much for the introduction. We are very excited to be a part of this symposium, and of course to have the opportunity to present our project that we have been working on for quite some time now. I think it was 3 years from now.
Wow, really?
And yeah, what is the topic? In Latin font, when you open a normal text editor, you have like millions of different fonts that you can choose from, like Helvetica, Arial, Times New Roman. But in SignWriting, there's so far only one font. So our idea was, why not have a second alternative font for SignWriting that you can choose between the two alternatives. And today we want to share our experiences and our ideas designing that font. But first we should introduce ourselves. I will start. As Valerie already said, I'm Joachim Nitschke. My sign name is Yo. It comes from my short name, which is Yo. Yeah, I'm a software developer from Hamburg, Germany. So I studied computer science, and during that, as a hobby, I started to learn German Sign Language. And doing that, during my studies, I got in contact with Delex, the team that built the software Stefan presented 2 days ago. And I worked there for 4 years as a software developer. So I'm actually one of the guys who built that software Stefan presented to us. And in Delex, our idea was to build a writing software for sign writing that you can use as easily as, for example, Microsoft Word, where you can write texts and lay out them. And as I already said, in Word you can choose between many different fonts. And yeah, we had during that time I worked there, we had the idea that it would be nice to also have an alternative font for sign writing. And with that idea in mind, I met Janina and Paul, and then we decided to try to design a new font.
Yeah,
okay.
We too are communication designer, and
Maybe you get in the middle now.
No,
Yeah.
Now we are all
okay.
in the screen. Yeah.
And that's good, actually.
Yeah,
Very
Paul
good.
and I are a communication designer, and when we met Jo, it was he was presenting us the idea, and usually in our studies we design Latin fonts. So this idea was very special for you, and we wanted to be part of this opportunity, to be part of this idea, which is like in the baby shoes right now, and a very special opportunity, and we wanted to do it, to try it. Yes.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, yeah, I'm Paul, and Janina and I were basically studying or doing the same. We're both graphic designers, and to start our presentation, we want to show you one part of our design process, which was really interesting, because working together with Delex was always pretty special, because we couldn't say if it works really, because we are like peering people. So we always had to check with Delex if our ideas actually can work. And I think to start with, we show a video of Timo, who is a member of Delex. He's a deaf teacher, and he will say a few things about our design work together with them.
So now's the point where we should make the other screen big. And
Yes.
Here's...
So Adam is showing this video.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And here you can see a picture of our working process, but I'm changing the screen to the video now. So this is Timo. Can you see him?
Yes, I can. Adam, you have him front and center, right? Yeah. Oh, look at the sign name on the T-shirt.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a note that he speaks usually German sign language, but he also has experience in ASL, and he tried to use ASL. But he already told us that he made some mistakes. But so
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
I'm
yes.
going to show it now.
So he also introduces himself. He tells us that he wanted to support our idea. Okay. Was it understandable? Could you see it now?
Yes. How did you feel, Adam? Adam's a native into ASL. Could you understand?
It was good. It was good.
Okay, cool.
Very good.
What was for us at DELEX was so important that SignWriting is such a strong tool to show different languages in comparison, which helps us at DELEX a lot to teach people the spoken language and the grammar of the spoken language. Yeah, what Timo said is that in DELEX we get a lot in contact with people who don't know sign writing, and they first have to learn it to use it during the lessons. One of our goals, we will come to that later, was to make a font that is very easy understandable for people who don't know sign writing in the first place. But we will come to that later. To give you a first impression what we have done during our project, this is what we have done. So these are the symbols we designed during the last years, and of course, sign writing has such a huge number of symbols, so it is quite a big task to make a new font for that, because there are so many symbols. So we ask ourselves where to start, and we thought that, of course, the hands are the most important part when signing. So we wanted to start with that, and of course, there are still a lot of hand symbols. So we agreed in the end on to realize a new design for the 60 most used hand symbols in German Sign Language, and this here is the result. And now Paul and Janina will tell us how we got there.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, I want to give you guys an insight on how we work, like during our design process, so that it's easier to understand the decisions we made for the sign writing alphabet, and why we did what we did, basically. Yeah, we study communication design, and one part of our studies is type design, which is basically how to design a font, in our case, for the Latin alphabet. And you know, as you can see on the picture, there's many different fonts, and there's many different styles. And you can maybe choose a font which is maybe a little bit childish, or a font which is very elegant. But there's also fonts which are pretty neutral and pretty geometric. And for us, was pretty clear that we wanted to make a font for the sign writing alphabet which is really clear and really straight. And yeah, that was like one of the first decisions we made. Like designing a font is like looking very closely on every single letter of the alphabet. So we have a program, and we take really tiny decisions that usual people probably won't see, but which are really important for us to make letters that fit together well, and they make like a very nice appearance, like not by itself, but also in that font family, like that there is certain rules to that font which are applied to every single letter, so everything together looks nice as well. Yeah, and when you start designing a font, there's only a very few base shapes, which are the rectangle, the triangle, and the circle, and you can make pretty much every letter out of these very basic shapes. And this is how it looks. For example, in this font, this is a font which is very geometric, so it's very close to these base shapes. And for us, it was like the starting point was to look what are the base shapes in sign language.
Yes, and of course, you know, the base shapes in sign writing, how it exists now is the square or rectangle, the house as we call it. I hope it's okay that we call it house. and the circle. So here we marked the base shapes on the actual hands. And these are the results of the base shapes in the actual signs. Signs. They are very simple. They are very simple elements. They look uniform and they are easy to write. And as we already mentioned, in designing a Latin font, you start with the base shape, and then you can systematically use this base shape to apply it on others that have the same base shape. In this case, it's the O, the G, and the C, for example. And so you can go on step by step to form other signs out of one base shape. And we applied this system on the design of our SignWriting font. For the circle, it was this procedure. The fingers differ, but the base shape stays the same. And this is for the house, and this is for the square. And they represent the hands that you see down there. Yeah, and then there are more complex signs. In the Latin alphabet, these are the H, or this, you can see, I mark it now. You can see it on the left. This is the base shape where you can build others from. And in SignWriting, these would be these.
Yeah, in Latin script, you always look for groups of characters that are based on the same basic shape. And we also did this for SignWriting. And started with the base shapes, and now there are also more complex shapes in SignWriting. Not every SignWriting character can be made of the square, the circle, and the house shape. For some symbols, more complex.
Yeah. Yeah, you always try to find one component that can be used for similar signs. Yeah. And as you can see, wait a second, they already look consistent. This is because of the base shape, but you also apply another tool that is used in designing in Latin font, and this is the guidelines. They make sure that every sign has the same height, and yeah, they constitute the shape of every sign too. Combining all these components or these aspects, we created a grid, and with this grid, you can basically form every other sign that is existing in SignWriting. You can just add the fingers, and they all have the same position, and it is a tool we built that you can use now to create all symbols in SignWriting.
Yeah, the idea was not to directly start designing the symbols, but to first find a grid that can be used as a template for every future symbol to design.
So like as Joachim said in the beginning, we took like 60 hands which are used the most often. But with this grid we made, you can basically design pretty much every hand you would need. So these 60 hand was such a big variety that we could find rules that can now be pretty much put onto every other hand you could possibly think of.
Yeah, and so in general, I can summary it a little bit. Our goal was to equal the stroke thickness, to equal the base shapes, and to equal the positions of the fingers. So, and this is how it would look, like we earlier saw. When applying all these rules we create to the symbols we already designed. And as you can see, now that we look at all together, they seem to be consistent. They appear uniform already.
Yeah, and to show that a little bit more in detail, we show you some examples from the existing font, which you can use now, and from our font where we try to apply these rules where, how we was talking about. And on this picture you can see that there were like different houses, but we decided that for us it would make sense to have only one house because the font looks then more consistent in itself.
May I say one thing? I think everybody should know when they say house, they mean the flat hand. Okay, because a house is a concept, and that would be a sign. Like an American Sign Language, a house would be signed in a certain way. And it's true that the sign for house does use the flat hand. That's true. But we call that the flat hand. I think we should say that so that everybody knows. Okay.
Thank you very much for mentioning it, because we thought about that, like preparing the presentation.
I see.
We use it so long that it's kind of stuck in our heads.
Of course. We have our names too. You know how it is. We've all been working in different projects over so many years. But please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah, now this would be the example for the flat hand, that we introduced like pretty much one flat hand symbol and not many different ones. And another example would be like stroke thickness. You can maybe switch one further, where you can see that we wanted to make a very clear and geometric font, and we decided to use only one stroke thickness so that every symbol has the same basic look and it fits together well. And on the left hand side you can see
sorry.
On the left hand side you can see that there is different stroke thicknesses, but not all of them are really important. So we try to see like which ones are important, which have a meaning, and which are maybe not so so obvious why they are thinner or thicker, or if it's really like necessary. And we have been told that there is very much meaning to every like thing pretty much used, but we thought about, for us, what maybe can be made a little bit easier so the font looks a little bit nicer and it's still working. So yeah, but this is was a very close dialogue with the DLX team, so we would
I bet. I bet. Well, if you're just working with one sign language and they are writing signs that deaf people already know really well within German Sign Language, let's say, people can start memorizing almost anything, just as long as they know that represents a certain concept. But if you're dealing with the international world, you get into a real issue here with what you have there. So I think what you're saying is you're getting it down for the German Sign Language, is that correct?
Yeah, but we're going to talk about that, like differences and everything, a little bit later, I guess.
Okay, very good, very good.
Yeah, we have some more examples, I think, or like everything at once, like maybe one further. Yeah, there you could see like that it looks like to us a lot different, maybe to someone who's not that close into it, maybe just a little bit, but it becomes more like one font, which like is from the outward appearance is closer together from the single letters than the one we saw before.
Yeah, we wanted to make a font that has a very consistent style, so where every character is looks the same from the style perspective. Yes. That is why we worked so. For us, stroke thickness and shapes were so important to have them unified.
I see. It's beautiful. Very nice.
Okay, and when we, as said before, we discussed a lot with the DLX team and showed our work regularly to them to get feedback from them. And especially what was very helpful was we worked a lot with Stefan Wörmann, because he's a very experienced reader, and of course it's for us important too to get the opinion of an experienced reader in sign writing. And one problem we always had to solve during these discussions is how much can we actually change a symbol but still maintain the readability. And which leads in the end to the question, what actually determines readability in sign writing. And when we take a look at Latin fonts, for example, here you have different versions of the capital letter A. And as you see, some can be read pretty well. Others maybe a little less, but all together, it's quite okay to read them. And most most fonts only change the letters in a small way, and they still maintain the base shape of the letter. But in some cases, for example, if you look at the small letter A, there's not only a difference in the style, but also there are also difference in the basic shape. So, for example, when I was in primary school and learned reading, I learned the letter on the right, the small a, and when I first saw the other versions that is used by the fonts on the left, I couldn't read it at first. So someone had to tell me this is also an A, and then I learned it, and now, of course, I can read both versions. Probably I don't really recognize it by reading which version is used. But at the beginning, I had to explicitly learn it. And that is, from that we learned that in Latin script, readability is something you have to learn. It's you can read best what you know best. It's a process of training, and you get used to the shape, and then you can read it very well. And of course, this is because the form of the letter has no visual relation to anything. So the question is, why does the A look like an A? There's no relation to the real world, because it represents the spoken language, and the sound is not a visual thing. It's nothing you can see. So it's just a convention that the A looks like this. Yes. Of course, it has developed over time, but now there's no visual relation anymore. So you have no choice but to learn it. So that's an A. But in sign writing, on the contrary, there is a very strong relation between the language, a very strong visual relation between the language and the symbols, because the symbol just looks like the hand. Due to the fact that the sign language already is a visual language. And so in sign language, in addition to the fact that you can learn readability, there's also the fact that readability comes from iconicity. So you can read those letters best that looks very similar to the real sign or the real hand while signing. And so far we have only presented symbols that where we made smaller adjustments in shape and stroke thickness. And now we want to also show you some examples of letters where we made a little bit larger changes, which our goal was to improve the iconicity there. Okay, the first symbol. Oh, Janina already switched the slides. Is the hand with the 5 fingers spread, and the original symbol in sign writing is based on the shape of the flat hand. And we learned from Stefan when we discussed with him that this comes from a certain rule that says if no finger is touching the palm of the hand, then the symbol is based on the symbol from the flat hand. So what we call the house. But as we heard before in Delex, there are a lot of people that are very new to sign writing. So we have a lot of sign writing beginners there, and from them we heard that for them this is a little bit irritating because they don't know this rule. They only see the symbol, and for them the aspect I talked about before, the iconicity, is more important to learn the symbol than the rules that it's based on. So we also made a version that's based on the square, of course breaking with the rules, but having a version that is maybe easier to learn for sign writing beginners, because in our opinion, or in the opinion of our colleagues at DELEX, it more looks like the actual hand. And another example is this hand. So it's almost the same, but only with a middle finger pointing towards you. And there also we had a maybe different idea we wanted to show you. In the original hand, the symbol is based on the perspective from the side. So you look at the hand from the side, and that's why the symbol looks like that. And we made a version that is based on the perspective the most other symbols are based on, and used the dot, which was also used on other symbols, to display the finger that is pointing towards you.
May I just ask a quick question? Are you going to be touching upon palm facing later?
Oh, no.
No. Okay. Very good.
Yeah, we also did the other versions, like the rotations, and we'll do that in a second.
All right. Very good.
So and here again, the DELEX team told us that this is more easy to learn. But of course, when we discussed with Stefan, he told us that this is, for him as an experienced reader, it is irritating, because he, of course, has learned and memorized the symbol, the original symbol, and now when we change it that drastically, for him, it's not that easy to read. So that was for us actually the most challenging part of our work. That we always had to find this compromise between a readability that is based on iconicity, so to make a font that is maybe a little bit easier to learn, and on the other hand, readability based on training, to make a font that can also be read very well by experienced readers like you all, because for you as a trained reader, it is very strange if you just suddenly change the symbol.
It's not that. I'm curious to see how we see full documents in it.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Because there are real reasons why we went to the side view, just so you know. Because some signs just couldn't be written with the symbol that you have. We did have dots. Oh, I did. I had dots on everything. And I even went through the sign writing list with great detail. I can put a dot here, everybody. You want me to put it on? No, we can't see the finger going into the mouth and inside the lips. So you could only see it coming towards you. You couldn't see it going inside here, you know. So we had to show the spoke so we could see it going somewhere. I'm just telling you that this went through years of development, 40 years.
That's pretty interesting for us. Of course.
And I'm interested to see how this goes on. Please go ahead. It's beautiful. Please know, I think this is gorgeous work. And I just wanted to break in to say that in the English language, we have a term called typography. Do you have a term like that in German? Typography. It's a little bit different than a font like just like the TrueType fonts that Steve developed, where we're just able to function in a computer. It's a little bit more like designing the beauty of the way the symbols look and making them change depending on, like Helvetica, a typeface, we would call that. So you're developing another typeface, isn't that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
That's what this is. Yeah, very good. It's great. We call that typography. That's actually a profession. So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. For us, it's basically the same. I think like typeface and font. I thought there were synonyms. I'm not sure if that's correct.
Not really. No. Not complete, it's so confusing you have no idea, but this is an excellent presentation. Don't let me interrupt you too much because it's a lot of fun. So please continue, and then we can always talk later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay, here again an overview over the symbols.
Uh-huh.
This is actually the end of our presentation.
now the overview of the symbols.
Because,
Oh, wow. Here we go.
with like all the symbols we did now with all the different rotations. So this is the work, the complete work we have done, and yeah, the next step would be maybe to start with the mimic symbols or to go on with the movement symbols. We will see, or to further test it and maybe to get your feedback and then go on with it.
Yeah, but like this, like 60 hands with all the like rotations and everything, like allowed us to build that grid, and this grid is basically like the heart from what we did, because with this grid you would be able to build like a lot more hands without having to think about all these rules, because you always have a grid for every finger, for every stroke thickness. So it's very easy for us now to think of other hand forms.
I see. Excellent.
So,
Yeah.
so that was basically the main work of our design process to build that grid. Yeah.
Very beautiful.
Yeah.
So
that's it.
That was.
Well, wait, can you go back to that screen?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course.
I want to thank you, first of all. Please know that I'm delighted. I hope you don't mind that I jumped right in here. because I love this. And just so you know, I've worked for so many years on these symbols. They have been a part of my life now since 1974. Let me tell you an example of why the thumb in some of your squares with the thumb to the side would be misread. Oh, here I thought I had turned off my phone, and I guess I didn't. Isn't that terrible? Somebody picked it up, I hope. Okay, let me explain. Do you have any rotations of these symbols? Can you see a rotated version of the white, you know, down at the bottom of this beautiful slide, over to the right at the bottom? You've got 3 squares that are for the thumb sticking out, I believe. One is here, one must be here, and one must be there. Isn't that right? Okay, so let's take the white one that's where the palm is facing us. And can you rotate it for a minute? Are you able to rotate it within your font?
I'm not sure if we can do it in the presentation, actually.
Oh, that's okay. So I'll just explain to you what's happening.
Yeah.
I used to do the hand like that. I wanted to explain this. This is an important history lesson of the developments of the symbols. It gets so frustrating. When you have see, the white square represents facing your body, and then you've got the line for the thumb. If you now turn it like this, so that the symbol now has the little line up at the top, it looks so much like
this hand.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I think I know what you mean. It looks like the hand with the index finger pointing out.
Yes, and so we used to do documents where we would test it out, really, with people reading. And we found out that if we put the thumb for the A hand, which is what we call it in American Sign Language finger spelling, that happens to be the letter A in American Sign Language, or you could call it the square with the thumb out, whatever. It looked so much like an index finger that we had no choice but to put the thumb into the middle of the square, because if we didn't, then people thought it was an index finger. So the one thing you need to do, and because index is used so much, it's for pointing and this, it has so much meaning involved when you're reading and writing real documents. First of all, the symbols for the index finger need to be longer. The line has to be longer for this finger than with this finger. Now, everyone, don't be upset. In the United States, this means something bad. But in Hong Kong Sign Language, it means something else. It doesn't matter. It's not necessarily a bad symbol. But there are times when we need to be able to know the difference between the middle finger and the index. Yeah. And even though it's true that you do have a place for them in your exact square, there are times when people can misread it if there isn't a different length for each finger.
Yeah.
And like, let me give you another example. The baby finger. You have an I hand shape here somewhere. Yeah. Oh, good. You did that on an angle.
We
Interesting.
did it exactly. Yeah. Because of
you accepted that. I appreciate it, because what happened in my old days, we had it completely straight up and down, just like the index finger. And you can imagine what happened. Everybody misread it. So we had to go, whoops, at an angle. Ouch. Most people don't even look like that when they do the I hand or this finger out. But we had to do it, or otherwise they misread it with the index.
Yeah, we ran into the same problem. And this is, of course, where always Stefan Wörmann helped us a lot, because
yes, I bet you've heard an earful.
for the history that you went through.
Yeah, yeah. And also thumbs. Oh, my goodness. When it comes to the thumbs, everybody has a history about the feelings, the way they feel about thumbs. I thought that was very funny when I first started. I couldn't believe everybody had so many emotional feelings connected to thumbs, but they do. And our hand symbols have been greatly criticized for the unusual, irregular kind of thumbs that we have. And some of them are at an angle, and some of them are a little straighter, and some of them are from a different part of the square or the rectangle. And it all came about because then people wouldn't confuse that symbol with another one. It had to do with fast reading so that people wouldn't get confused.
Yeah.
You see, there's so many hand shapes. And of course, in your case, you're dealing with what, around 60 or so. That's wonderful. It's a great way to standardize. But I do think that the last three will definitely be misread with the first three. The moment they're rotated. How do you feel about that, Adam?
We hoped. Okay, Adam. Sorry.
Yeah, I was noticing the same thing, that if you rotate it like that, it would look just like the one hand shape. I was noticing the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. And it depends on the sign language, you see, because not everybody is working with the same sign language, and some hand shapes are much more used in some sign languages than others, and it's very confusing for you, I'm sure, at the Delix team and at your in your typography design to find those hand shapes that are important for your sign language. That's actually very important linguistic work that you just did, because we have actually been struggling with that out of courtesy to all the beautiful people who have written to me over so many years. I kept adding hand symbols. And when I first started out, we only had around 80, I think, something like that, in the SignWriter DOS computer program. And then later, I hear some sound feedback. Should I do something? Okay, good.
There is Steve.
Okay, that's fine, thank you. And then from that experience, one day I got this fabulous contact from Spain, and they said, Valerie, we need you to add in SignWriter DOS software all these hands with the thumb going straight forward, which you have with the dots. And that's how we started using the dots, and I added those for the Parkers who were in Spain. And then those got added to a whole general set, and then we started working on the web, and all of a sudden I had the ability to be able to add a lot more hand symbols because we had more memory involved with software that's on the web. So to explain all of these things that happened in our rules came about through kind of experience. It wasn't built upon a complete logic from the beginning. It wasn't like I knew in advance exactly what everybody was going to think and need. It came through 40 years of experience. It doesn't mean that we're stuck where we are. I like what you've done. It's beautiful. And it's exciting, too. And I have definitely seen deaf people and hearing people both write in the style that you have. And it still is sign writing, because even though there are some variations that are different, we can see it's the same rules and the same symbols. I'm sure you know what the differences are, but I just wanted to make one last comment, and then I will not talk so much. And that is the fact that the dots are very useful whenever they're coming towards us or away from us. Yeah. Did you know that I developed a way to write dance first? I actually, as I was telling you earlier in the break, I actually wrote some dances in Hamburg for John Neumeier in his ballet. So I was a person who wrote body movement. And in our dance writing system, we actually have a dot for when an arm is coming straight at you. Mm-hmm. And if it's coming this way, we can use a dot or sometimes even a line. It's a long story. But the point is, things projecting were dots. So then when we started doing sign writing, we do have a bunch of symbols with dots. No question about it. And why did I do that? Because there were times when there were so many symbols, we didn't want them to be conflicted with others. We wanted to make sure that people could read the difference between this and this. And so you have that in there, and that's perfect. But there's one problem. Sometimes when these symbols with the thumb going forward, or any other finger going forward, sometimes those dots are only perfect when you're facing straight out or straight to you. And the moment you get side, the reason we then show the whole fingers is that we have contact with our face.
Yeah.
How do you show that with just the dot? I'd like to know, because I tried before and I didn't succeed. Go ahead, I'm going to be quiet now.
No, that's actually true. The version we showed before, the hand with the middle finger pointing towards you. Mm-hmm. I don't know, in German sign language, it's from the sign Internet. I think it's actually an American sign, isn't it?
Probably. What is the American sign, Adam, for Internet? Can you show your site? Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
It's the middle finger's touching. Ah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and it has to do with contact.
Exactly. And that's actually a case where our symbol is not so iconic, because when you put the two symbols next to each other, the fingers aren't really touching. So you have to understand that in a different way. That's true. So.
But I think it's very nice that you mentioned like the you call it A hand, right?
We did in our language. In American Sign Language, it just happens to be an A hand. It doesn't necessarily mean that's true in German Sign Language. I don't know. But yes.
In German, it's not
It's there. So we would have a difference. That's why we had two hand shapes. We had one out and one up here on the side. Do you have that?
No.
Yeah.
No, we don't have that one. We only have the one with the finger in front, the thumb in front. Yeah, exactly that one.
So how would you write finger spelling? Won't you need the side then?
It's not in these symbols, because when we made the selection, we went to SignPuddle and looked through the dictionary, the German dictionary, and looked which symbols are used the most. And this A hand is, of course, it's an important letter for spelling, but it's not in so many other signs in German Sign Language. So that's probably why it's not in the selection. But we had to start at a certain point, and that would be one of the next symbols to do.
Yes. Well, my immediate reaction is that your squares need to be a little smaller so that you can have more of a longer index finger without you losing the look of the square. Because we need to see the difference in length between the index and the thumb. That's just I'm just telling you through my experience of reading.
Yeah, actually that was one thing I wasn't because that was one thing we actually thought about, and we made the thumb a lot shorter than the index finger, and we thought, like, because we were not that experienced, that this should be enough to distinguish these two symbols from each other. But we thought about it, and we made it a lot smaller. So if you would see them next to each other, you probably it'd be easy to see that it's different. That one is the thumb and one is the index finger. But I can see that if they are separated from each other, then it's maybe hard to see. And like the little finger you mentioned, like we did it like in the diagonal like direction, because in this case we thought, yeah, okay, we have the same length, so we have to do something else about to be distinguished. And for the thumb, we thought like the short thumb would be enough, but maybe it's not. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you exactly what happened to me. I did that too. See, you're relearning everything that I went through. And so when you take a look at what we're doing right now, for example, talking about TrueType, you know that Steve Slavinsky also developed a totally different kind of TrueType that has nothing to do with typography, where you're changing the feel and look of the symbols, but instead he's just took what we already have and put it together with all the other symbols. Like how many symbols? 38,000 something, everything, and put it all together into one great big SignWriting TrueType font that can be used on the web to type with. So we're actually typing with TrueType now, which we never could do before. So thank you, Steve. But what you're doing is what I would call typography, which is changing, or the look of the symbols, but still making them enough like the symbols we use at the moment that we can still understand it, and it will be beautiful and pretty and perhaps even more standard, and that's a good thing. But let me tell you what I went through, so you know. The reason we don't have the thumb from the bottom of the square is because it was misread with the index finger so many times. It didn't matter what the length of that thumb is. You could make it almost a dot, and they'd still read it as an index finger. So if you put the thumb line in the center of the square to the side like we have been trying to do, although it is true that we are inconsistent only because the symbols were building like little bricks over 40 years, and people got used to one of them sort of at an angle and the other one a little bit over here. But if we were to redesign what we did 100%, I would get all the lines in the center of the square. So if you had the A, the line for the thumb would be in the center of the square. Then it can't be confused with the index. Now, there's one point here. Of course it could be confused with this, because then it would turn. But the difference there is this is not used. God, that looks bad. It looks bad in American Sign Language. That finger position is not as used as much, thank goodness, as the index. The index is the most used out of all the hand shapes, really truly, because we use it for pointing. It's
of course,
even an international sign language.
In German sign language.
Yeah, it's quite an international experience. So, so I realized that totally. It's just my experience. It doesn't mean that you have to change anything. And I want you to know that I'm grateful to you. I think you're a wonderful team of people, and you've done such beautiful work, and you're working hard. And you're contributing all kinds of ideas, and that's very, very important. So I don't want you to stop 1 minute. I'm just trying to explain some of the issues that came into my world for so many years. And another example that you probably know, if you've noticed, we had kind of a rectangle for the flat hand. It was a little skinnier, or what you call a house. And what did I want to tell you? Oh,
the different shape of the five hand.
Yeah. The reason that we, just for your own information, not that you probably really want to change it any, but the reason that we took the 5 fingers from the rectangle that creates the flat hand is that in sign language, oftentimes people would go like this and then spread their fingers. So they're already in the flat hand. And so to them, it was like going from a flat hand to the open of the flat hand. It's like an open flat hand is what it's like, at least as far as I could tell from the way people were reading it. Now, I may have misread it, and maybe people will disagree with me. It would be very interesting to get statistics on how people read the symbols. That would be very good. That'd be a good project. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. So in that case, if you start with that hand in a movement and then open it, the way in the original script the symbol looks, it is a more fluent change because both symbols look the same. On the other hand, we thought that if you start with a fist and then point out one finger after the other, then suddenly if you take out the 5th finger, then the symbol changes a lot, which was for us a bit strange. So,
well, yes, except how do you define the square? Why do you have a square at all?
Yeah,
in other words, go ahead. You see, for us, a square represented at least one finger down, at least.
Yeah, I know.
It's like, I know, and you probably don't care about that rule, and that's okay. But this 5-hand didn't have any fingers down. So yeah, we had our reasons for why we did things.
Okay.
So those rules aren't there now, but that's okay because I can read it. I can certainly read this one. I'm just concerned about the thumbs. I think they need to be in the middle of the square. That's just my suggestion for reading.
Okay.
And the dots, oh, there are about 12 others that we could do with dots. Let me tell you about this one. I noticed you did the side view on that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you never consider doing a great big thick dot?
Yeah, we did, yeah.
I did too. About 10 years ago. You can find the messages on the SignWriting list. I showed everybody, kind of a base hand and then a great big thick dot right here, with all the fingers. And I said,
yeah, okay.
And they said, no, they didn't like it. And those side view hands that then become white palm or dark palm, depending on the palm facing, has created all kinds of turmoil and confusion. But when you hand somebody reading a document, they read it. And if they don't analyze it, they see the hand shape in the side view, and they look at the white palm and say, okay, so it's white and it's facing me. And whether it's going this way or that way, doesn't matter. I see the hand shape. I see the palm facing. In general, now I know what the sign is because they've memorized what the sign is written for. So here's my question. Do you have any documents written with this lovely font? And it is beautiful. It is really beautiful.
We actually have we did a publication, but only in German.
Well, that's okay. We'll survive. I would like to see it, and of course I know our time is actually almost up. Can you imagine that? But actually, we have an intermission, and if you wanted to go longer, I'm perfectly happy. Do you have a document that you can show us, or is that for another presentation?
We could. No, I think it would be only too less time to show it now. But what we could do is maybe to send it to you, the PDF file, later after the presentation, so you can take a look there and see all the symbols more in detail.
Yeah. Yes.
What was I was going to say? That you always said like we don't want to change it back again, or we change the rules or anything. But actually, like we are very, very thankful for any feedback because we talk about all the time, and sometimes it just goes around in circles because
yes,
it's for us. It's only like aesthetical reasons, and all the functional meanings and everything we can't really define. So we're very thankful for opportunities like that to rethink and to argue about our decisions. That's really it means a lot to us.
Yeah, I can say so too. It's because you are probably the person with the most experience in that. Of course, we talked to the Delex team and to Stefan Böhmer and got a lot of useful feedback there. But now again, it is so much more interesting to hear what your experiences were when you designed the project.
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, thank you very much. And it's a pleasure for me to work with you too. You're right about how older people have trouble learning to read a change in their writing system. And actually, I'm rather impressed with the German culture. I remember, if you go back in time and you look at the old German texts, boy, you had different symbols in there, didn't you? You had very complex, beautiful things. And I just am amazed at how you have adapted your written literature in Germany to a modern day kind of phonetic spelling that's phenomenal, and that you were able to make that kind of adjustment, and somehow your whole culture was able to accept the fact that you were writing differently than you did 300, 400 years ago. And so it is with written sign languages. We are trying very hard to bring a foundation for the world, giving them basic symbols, and everybody has all kinds of projects. It is bound to happen that there will be different typography or typographical design fonts for sign writing. That's a good thing. And you are blessing us, really truly helping us by doing this. And the one thing is, it is good that we test some documents, because what might be very readable when, for example, I think his name was Tivo, and I think Tivo mentioned that maybe some symbols weren't that easy to read. Mm-hmm. When you start actually reading documents and sit down and read it like a newspaper, believe it or not, if you know sign writing and you have the spellings memorized, because just like we have our own spellings memorized when we read and write spoken language, after a while it doesn't even matter whether the symbols are here or there. People do read it. The problem right now in our history is that we're picking at one symbol, just like you showed the letter A in the Latin or the Roman alphabet, and how funny it looked with the different looks. Maybe that might be hard to read for somebody who might be new to that alphabet, right? And yet for us, because we know that alphabet, we probably would say, ah, that's an A, no problem, right? Exactly. But if you wrote a whole newspaper with a squashed A, like you showed in one of those funny pictures, that would get harder, wouldn't it? Yeah. So what I'm trying to get at is that you're doing a beautiful design based on beauty, and you've done that. And now I would like to start writing with it a little bit and seeing if it's really readable. And if it's not, I'm grateful if you're open to that feedback. And we'll find a way. You'll see. And those dots, you were in keeping with the the rules of the system as far as projection goes. Yeah. And the only problem is we had to make exceptions because we're dealing with very unusual languages.
I just want to say, when you mentioned you want to start writing with it to test it, Delex was already integrating our symbols in the editor. So you can now choose...
Not yet. But
sorry.
Because we only started with these symbols. Yeah, but I think to make a real good comparison, you need more symbols, like also the movements. But we are right now in the process to get the symbols into the Delex software so that you can see them in the context of the sign and compare them inside a text. So to make exactly this test that you've been talking.
Yes, exactly. So that's good to know. So I know now that later on, when you feel ready, I could go to the Delex program and go to the editor part of your Delex program, and I could we can choose between the standard way that we're writing right now and also the symbols that you have created in your font. Is that right?
Exactly. We hope that.
Okay. No problem.
It will come sometime in the future. Okay.
Oh, well, that's a blessing. Thank you very much. And there are some people who make their living at designing typographical, different kinds of fonts, Helvetica and all the different fonts that we have within the English, ASCII.
And do that too. So.
Yeah, exactly. So there may be yes, go ahead.
We are designers in typography.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Exactly. So, from this experience working with typographers, I'm honored. I want you to know, it will be a lot of fun to see if we can find a balance between creating a standardized typography, but also have it so we can truly read the documents. And those two balances will come. And I just got a lovely message from Stefan Bormann, and he says his respect and his hello, and is so excited to work with you. And he said this was a great presentation. Okay, well, I want to thank you so much. I hope that we will be more in touch and that we will continue to work together, okay? All right. And thank you very much. Do you want to say anything more before we say goodbye?
We are happy to hear all kind of feedbacks, not just only from you, also from everyone that maybe has started with the font, with the SignWriting language. So we are very thankful for every feedback, and this is the kind of process we are going to go in now.
Yes, I predict this will. Yeah. Go ahead.
Everyone who listens, feel free to write us say.
We will. And as you know, everybody who's watching, this is presentation number 51. On the presentation web pages, you go to signwriting.org/symposium/presentation 0051. And you will find information about the new sign type font for sign writing. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you.
Okay.
Bravo! That was a perfect ending to a perfect day. Thank you so much. We're going to have a little break now for the next half an hour. Goodbye, Paul. Goodbye, Janina. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you. Sozusagen, der Mikro ist noch an.
Hello?
Hello, Valerie.
Hello, Mohammed. Is it
How
Mohammed?
are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Thank you.
I just
I'm fine,
wanted,
thank you.
I'm good. And you can hear me?
Yes, yes, good.
Oh, very good. Just so you know, we're kind of live right now in the sense that the presentation won't stop until the actual end of our presentation together. So we're just testing and people can hear us, but later on we will edit this out so nobody listens to us testing our mics. Can you hear me? So
Yes, yes. But the problem I have a low speed connection. That's why I recorded the presentation and send it to you to play it
okay.
because
Yes,
my
go ahead.
connection at home is good.
Well, did you know that actually right now you're connected beautifully? I'm not saying that we shouldn't play your video. We will.
Okay.
But just so you know, it's really quite clear. In fact, your sound is excellent as far as I can tell. So, and I was quite pleasantly surprised to know that possibly Yosra will come. Will she be coming today? Yeah.
I don't know.
You're
I
not
think
sure. Yeah, maybe, huh?
I'm not sure.
But we'll find out. But you know, last year we presented. How do I pronounce the name? Is it Yosra or how does one say it? Yusra?
Yusra, this correct spelling.
Thank you, thank you. And you are Muhammad Ali. Should I say Ali?
Yes.
There we go. I think we have Yusra, possibly.
Yes, Yusra.
Oh, hello, Yusra. Hi. I'm so happy to see you. Wow.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
I'm excited that you're here. I, as you know, tried really hard to present your presentation last year. I think it was 23. Isn't that right? I'm not sure. I didn't look. But anyway, yeah, it was an excellent presentation last year as well. Yes, very exciting. The Tunis signer. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you.
Can we hear you? Start talking. Let's see if we can hear you.
So I hear you very well. Are you hear me? Do you hear me?
I do hear you. There's a little bit of an echo, but that may be just me. You know, these computers are very strange, and every time we're just talking until we really start. We're not starting for another 8 minutes, just so you know. And Adam Frost will be coming soon, and he is both deaf and hearing person who acts like a hearing person with his hearing aids. He's a remarkable combination of two cultures. And Adam is running the show in the sense that he's pushing the buttons, if you know what I mean. And he will be the one who will start us live, you know what I mean? We're on. And we are technically on right now, but we won't start for about 8 minutes. And Adam isn't here yet, but Steve is, I think. And Steve is setting up your video. Can you see there's a little, see how there are little squares at the bottom of the screen? And can you see, there's Steve. Can you wave, Steve?
Yes.
Wave, that's Steve. Steve is the developer of SignPuddle software and the SignWriting TrueType fonts, etc. But Steve is also running the slides and helping us with the video. I believe you have a video, is that correct? Yeah. So now that you're both here, I mean, you could tell us directly all about it, or do you want to play the video? Can you hear me?
Please repeat. Could you please repeat?
It's hard to hear me. Are you having trouble hearing me? There, Steve. Steve, I think Steve, you need to mute.
It's okay. It's okay. I hear you.
All right, Steve is going to get the his own head. See, I have headphones on, and so do you, Mohammed. What about you, Yusra? Do you have this on?
Yes, I hear you very well, Satan.
Good, very good. Yes, I want to make sure to pronounce your name correctly. Is it Yusra? Is that right? Yusra?
Yes, Yusra Bouzid, yes. That's it.
Yusra Bouzid, did you say?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, it is hard, and I'm sure I don't pronounce people's names very well when I introduce them. So it's Muhammad Ali
Muhammad Ali.
Khanisi? Muhammad Ali?
In Tunisian, we have KH Khanisi.
Khanisi?
Yes, KH yes.
Khanisi. Well, they'll forgive me. I'm English speaking, and they all know that. But nonetheless, we're happy to have you here. And in 5 minutes, we'll start. And I was very impressed with your work. I want you to know that I looked at the memo sign. I think it's absolutely cool. Did you see your presentation webpage that I put together? It's number 52.
Yes. I see. Thank you so much for this great webpage.
Oh, good. It's okay? Yeah. Oh, good. Well, with the video, I noticed you went out and tested. You have an important video there because you're talking with deaf children, aren't you? Isn't that right?
We have designed this educational game to motivate the deaf learners to learn sign writing notation. This fantastic writing system. So. The idea is to design an educational game because the games are the deaf children are very interested to play the games. So learning through games is a very good alternative to learn educational concepts.
It's perfect, but we're going to have to wait until we start, because you'll end up repeating yourself twice. But that's perfect. That's just what we need to hear. It's just that we're not starting yet. We have 4.5 minutes. I just wanted to ask, Steve, do you feel you can do the video with no trouble? Do you think it will show?
Yeah, I can play the video. Yeah,
okay.
It'll play fine. You want to take a preview of it real quick?
Why don't we take a look at the video and see if it's functioning? That would be a good idea. We have a few minutes here. We're getting so many interesting messages from people. Anyway, right now, if you see how you see squares down at the bottom, if you click on one of those squares, you can see it full screen. So when you look at your own video there, if you click on that and look at it, oh, Steve, weren't you playing it? I don't know what happened.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. It's nobody's fault. We're trying to figure out what's happening. There we go, Steve. You're going to be playing that, right? I don't know whether he can hear me. Steve, can you hear me? Ah, what's wrong, I wonder. Am I not? Oh, no.
Hi, Val. Could you hear the video at all? Hi, Val. I couldn't talk because I had two computers and the speakers were going to conflict with each other. But that video has audio. Could you hear the audio at all?
No, I need you to play it again. Could you start playing it again?
Okay, but I can't talk while I'm trying to do this. And that's
I'll be quiet. Let's see if we can get the audio in there. Okay, let's try it. Adam needs to come back. I'm not hearing it.
Me too. I hear nothing.
No, we hear nothing. Now, we do have the video on your webpage, so everybody can watch it anytime they want to. Yeah, you need to go to YouTube, Steve. You need to really go to YouTube, not do it on our page. Yeah, exactly. And now play it. Where is the sound?
We cannot hear you.
No, we can't hear it. Darn it. I wonder why. Should I try it? Let me try from. Wow. All right. Well, let me just try something here. Oh, I guess that's wrong place. Just one moment. Can you hear this?
No, I don't think.
Valerie, I think if you're using your headset, your microphone is probably close to you, and that's why it's not hearing what's going on inside the computer.
Hi, Adam. I couldn't hear what I was trying to switch and set that around. Do you have any ideas?
Well,
Sign language is an integral part and a gratifying feature of membership in the deaf culture. According to the World Federation of Deaf, there are about 70 million people who use sign language as their first language or mother tongue.
I can hear that.
Okay, I gotta stop it. I'm sorry. Okay, so, boy. Now, when I went full screen, could you see it? Okay. Can you hear me?
yes.
I think if you do the screen share, you'll be able to play the video and we'll be able to hear it as well.
Yeah, well, I did a screen share. I'm in a screen share right now. What do I do? Do you want me to get out? I got to get out of screen share because I have to talk to everybody. Let me get out. So let me stop. Okay, now can you see me? And I think it's 11 o'clock, and we are all going to win, okay? This is a group of brilliant people here, and when it comes to technology, well, you never know. My name is Valerie Sutton, and I want to welcome everybody to session 3 of day 4, July 24th, of the SignWriting Symposium 2015. This has really been an excellent symposium. And today, here in session 3, we have two very brilliant programmers from Tunisia, one of my favorite countries. I love Tunisia. There have been so many people who have blessed our lives from Tunisia. And SignWriting is used there, and partly because of the excellent software that's being developed in Tunisia. So first I'd like to introduce Yusra Bouzid, is that right? Can you say your name?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm happy to meet you. I'm finally seeing you in person. That makes me happy. And then we also have Mohammed, oh boy, I'm so afraid I'm not going to say this right, Mohammed Ali Khanisi. Would you like to say your name properly? Okay, that's okay. Okay, well, that's lucky. Listen, everybody, if you want to read all the documents that back up this wonderful presentation on MemoSign, you can go to their presentation webpage. It's called the MemoSign Game, Match Game for Deaf Learners, and it's presentation 52 at the SignWriting Symposium 2015. And here we see on Steve's screen, and he's sharing the screen right now and showing you the top of the web page 52, presentation 52, which is at the SignWriting Symposium on signwriting.org. And you can see what I did. I went into the MemoSign game, which is very exciting, and I grabbed a picture from it. And that's an avatar. He's going to move for you in a minute. You're going to find it pretty exciting. And if Steve keeps scrolling down, there's a wonderful abstract that our two presenters and Professor Jenny wrote. And below you will find that there are their biographies, and also, keep scrolling, Steve. Go down to the videos and the slides, okay? Just for 1 minute, I'd like to show everybody there. You can see that the videos and the slides that we're going to show today are also on this webpage. So if for any reason somebody cannot hear what we present now or has a little trouble, viewing it, later on you can go to presentation 52 and view it yourself directly on YouTube. That's so important to know that. So now I'm going to ask Yusra and Mohammed Ali to please start presenting and tell us about your project. Go ahead, please. Yusra and Mohammed Ali, can you say something? Or do you want us to start the video?
Okay. First, I will introduce myself. I'm Mohammed Ali Khanisi, and I'm a PhD student in computer science from Tunisia. I'm so excited to be here in this symposium So I will talk in this presentation about the use of accessible educational game for deaf learners. So, I think it's okay.
Yes, perfect. Keep going.
Thank you.
Okay, and Yusra, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, my name is Yusra Bouzid. I am a PhD student at the University of Tunis from Tunisia. I work in my thesis for 4 years. This is my 4 years. The subject of my thesis is the interpretation of SignWriting notation through using avatar technology. So we will present in the SignWriting Symposium a new educational game named MemoSign, which can be used to help deaf signers to learn SignWriting notation. That's it.
It's very exciting, and if I understand it correctly, you're using SWML, which is maybe old, I know, the SignWriting markup language, and then you adapted it, didn't you, to program an avatar in a new way. Isn't that true? How did you? It must have been hard. Go ahead.
The SWML, it's the input of my system. Just the notation will be presented in SWML. The system will take the SWML sign box. Then it will parse it to extract the significant features of the notation, which compose the internal structure of the sign. Then, from these the significant features, the system will provide a linguistic representation for the sign, which include all the phonetic details in order to interpret correctly the motion through avatars. In the third stage, the linguistic representation will be converted to SML. SML is a skeletal language which will be used. I will use it to decode the linguistic representation in the form of XML format. The XML format describes the movement of each joint of the avatar, the facial movement, the movement of the hands, and so on. And finally, the SML script will be decoded or interpreted by an animation engine. The animation engine will produce the animation avatar. That's it.
It's fabulous. It's not just that's it. It's terrific. And there's also been an avatar that you've developed first called Tuni Signer. Isn't that right?
Yes, Tuni Signer, the whole system. Yes, the website. My website, it's a sort of sign language dictionary. This dictionary includes the notation of the SignWriting notation and the interpretation of each notation through avatar.
Well, that sounds excellent. Now you have some slides. Would you like to go through the slides yourself with us, and Steve could just change the slides for you if you'd like, and you could just tell him, go to the next slide, go to the next slide. Or would you like me to show a video? What should we do?
I cannot understand you, dear Valerie. Can you repeat, please?
Oh, sorry. I wonder what I can do. Should I show a video or a slide?
Yes.
The video presentation.
The video. Okay, that's the answer.
Okay.
I'm going to try my best in Google Hangouts, I'm going to try to share my screen.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is an interesting experience. I'm going to start sharing screen.
Tunisia is a francophone town, Mama. It's our second language. It's the French language and not the English language. That's it. That's why we can we have difficulty to express ourselves. That's it.
Oh, you do beautifully, Yusra. And I wish I could speak French. I really should be able to do that, shouldn't I? Can you see? I'm going to go full screen and try to do this if I can. Okay, so I'm going to go full screen, I think.
Hello, we are Mohammed Nisi, Mr. Bouzi, and Professor Mohammed Jamil from Research Laboratory Latis from Tunisia. We will talk in this presentation about an accessible educational game for deaf learners. The presentation is broken down into 5 sections. First, we will start by an introduction. Then, I'm going to show some related works. After that, I will present a new educational game for deaf learners. In section 4, I will show you an experimentation in classroom with deaf learners. Finally, we will conclude by a conclusion and future works.
Let's begin by the introduction. Sign language is an integral part and an identifying feature of membership in the deaf culture. According to the World Federation of Deaf, there are about 70 million deaf people who use sign language as their first language or mother tongue. For the majority of these people, learning any spoken language is not a natural and automatic process. It's rather a long and intensive task. It should be noted that around 80% of deaf people worldwide have an insufficient education and literacy problems. Indeed, many studies have reported that low educational attainment levels among these individuals are associated basically to their inability to develop reading and writing skills in spoken language, or through the so-called oral approach, which excludes the use of signed languages. There is no doubt that having a means to represent their own language in a writing form can bring to these signers the same advantages that writing systems for spoken languages bring to speakers. For example, young deaf learners can express, share, and record their ideas and thoughts on paper without translating it all the time. Moreover, a sign language writing form can be very useful to improve the ability of these learners to comprehend and acquire the writing versions of oral language. To date, a few attempts at developing a standardized notation system for representing sign languages have been made. One of the best known and most widely used is SignWriting. SignWriting system uses a set of highly iconic symbols to represent manual and non-manual features of signed languages. SignWriting is the only writing system in regular use. It's now adopted in more than 10 countries to aid literacy, such as USA, Germany, Brazil, and Tunisia. However, it's important to stress here that a training to learn to interpret the static transcription is needed for novice users who are accustomed to the use of their sign language in visual gesture modality. We believe that the use of information and communication technology, especially 3D signing avatars, can support the teaching of literacy to students who are deaf and hard of hearing. Actually, these digital agents have the potential to act as a powerful communication medium for learners to display knowledge in their first language and make the writing information completely accessible to them. On the other hand, we believe that the use of computer games is another promising alternative to reinforce the learning experience of deaf learners, since they can consume the attention of these learners and increase their motivation and engagement. In this context, we propose a new learning game that federated the avatar technology, computer game, and the sign language writing form SignWriting to motivate deaf signers to read and write in their mother tongue.
Now, I will show you some related works. Researchers have demonstrated the effectiveness of learning version of existing games in many domains. As example of learning version of interesting games, we cite Rainbow Bubble that was adapted in learning context for teaching English language. A learning version of Sims designed also for teaching English language. A learning version of Pac-Man game designed for responding to questions about programming language. A learning version of Snake that designed for determining the precedence relationship between activity, and also we cite a learning version of shooting that was adopted for teaching introduction to programming language. This example shows that many works have adopted an existing games for teaching many subjects. However, most of these games were designed for learners with typical development. Nevertheless, is now about designing of educational games for learners with special needs. For that, we will introduce in the next section a learning version of memory match game for deaf learners. Now, I will introduce to you the learning version of memory match game designed for deaf people. Traditional version, called memory match game, is a card game in which all of the cards are laid face down on a surface. The objective of the game is to turn over a pair of matching cards with least possible fields. The traditional version, all the cards hold only visual information. However, in the learning version, other types of information have been added, which are word sign writing. The first card holds writing information, whilst the second card holds the translation of the word in sign writing. The second pair of cards is visual sign writing, and the third pair of cards is math problems and sign writing. It's important to note that when the learner selects a card that holds sign writing notation, a 3D avatar animation appears for rendering the notation in visual gesture modality. Now I will show you the game.
The learning version of memory match game is very simple. It's comprised 8 pairs of cards. The player just must turn over pairs of matching cards that have the same meaning, with the least possible trials. Blue cards hold sign writing notations, while green cards hold their description in writing language. When the player flips a card that holds a sign writing notation, the virtual signer starts the interpretation of its notation content in visual gesture modality. The game is over when all the cards have been matched. It should note here that the incorporation of a virtual avatar in the game could be particularly beneficial for two main reasons. On the one hand, the signing avatar could offer a support for players to understand and grasp the sign writing notation content, and this by displaying and interpreting the transcribed gestures in natural and comprehensible movements. On the other hand, arranging an animated human-like character could certainly increase and promote the engagement, fun, and motivation of these children. The virtual avatar is driven by an animation software called Tunisigner. Tunisigner was conceived to automatically interpret the exact gestures represented within the sign writing notations. The system architecture consists of 3 parts. The first part is devoted to parse and process the sign writing notation, which are provided in an XML-based format named SWML. All information associated with the input SWML file is processed to identify the significant features that compose the internal structure of the sign. The second part is dedicated to provide a detailed linguistic representation for each notation, in order to specify how correspondent signs are articulated. Finally, the third part is devoted to convert the obtained linguistic representation to the sign modeling language SML. SML can describe any signed utterance in terms of translations and earlier rotation of a group of joints, like wrist, hand fingers, eyebrows, jaw, and so on. The SML script will be interpreted then by an animation engine to render the 3D animations in real time.
Now, I will show you an experimentation in classroom with deaf learners. To sum up, this work described a new educational game for deaf learners. The objective of the game is to foster vocabulary acquisition for deaf learners in both spoken and sign language, to render the learning experience with more fun, to engage deaf learners and to keep them motivated. Future works will study the impact of this learning game on level of knowledge. Thank you for your attention.
Can you hear me? Sharing here. Hi, can you see me?
Symposium 2015.
Whoa.
Welcome to the SignWriting Symposium 2015.
Excuse me for 1 minute.
My name is Valerie
We need
Sutton.
to stop the video, Valerie.
You know, when videos are on YouTube, they oftentimes have other videos that start right after you're done with the video you just finished. That's what just happened. I was watching your video, and then all of a sudden it started something else of ours. My goodness. They've already recorded the SignWriting Symposium 2015. Listen, could you see the video that I showed? Could you see my full screen, and were you able to see everything? And were you able to hear it? Well, that's wonderful, because I thought it was a fantastic video. I loved every minute of it. Don't you agree, Steve? Wow. And Adam, yes, I tell you, I was going, my heart, I'm so happy to see these deaf children, and their that was you, I assume, asking the questions? Was that you, Yusra, asking the questions? I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can I talk about the experimentation?
Yes, please do that. Yes.
Yes. Thank you. So the experimentation was performed in a Tunisian association for deaf people named ATAS. This association offers specialist educational services for deaf children. The group of the participants was 9 deaf learners, aged from 9 to 16 years old. During the sessions, each participant was accompanied by me and my colleague Mohamed Ali, and also by their teacher and a sign language interpreter. So me and my colleague Mohamed Ali were responsible for giving a short training session on how playing the game to participants, and to perform an interview session with them, while the teacher and the sign language interpreter have played the role of intermediaries between us and the deaf participants for translating spoken English to sign language and vice versa. So before starting the experimentation, a brief description of what the game generally involved was provided to the teacher and her assistant. We have coordinated with them about the vocabularies that will be presented in the memo sign. So, after finishing playing, each participant was requested to answer questions in the form of an interview. The participants' comments on the learning game during the interview were very encouraging. Most participants wish that they have more opportunities to use the memo sign game as a learning tool during the session of learning vocabularies. In addition, the participants wish that the learning game will be available on the social network Facebook. So, in the conclusion, the participants were very excited to use the memo sign, and they learn the sign writing notation. That's it.
Wow, that's just amazing. It's very well done. So is memo sign available on Facebook right now?
Yes, we have created.
Go ahead.
It's only available online, and future work we will integrate this game on Facebook.
Oh, I see. So in the future it will be in Facebook, but not right now.
Yes.
Yes, I see. But right now on your presentation webpage, I believe we have a link where we can click and go to see it. Isn't that right? And to try it and to use it? Is there a place on the web? I think there is. It's my memory. I don't mean to be... I hope you understood my question. There is a place where we could go to try it. Isn't that true? When people are learning about this, they would probably want to try it. Isn't that true? Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you very well.
Okay. All right, so let me see if I can find it. I'm going to go find the SignWriting Symposium presentation 52, and I'm going to go down to, let's see, the abstract. Did I put, first of all, is Toonie Signer working right now?
Yes,
Okay.
it's working.
So would it be a good idea for me to share my screen and show you Toonie Signer? Would that be good? And then we could show Memo Sign also. We have another, half hour or so. And what would you like to do now?
So I have a new rubric in the website Toonie Signer for Memo Sign. It's available now on the net. Just you can access to tuniesigner.com /memosign. We will find the description of the game and also the link to the ISL version of MemoSign and the Tunisian version of MemoSign. There is two versions of our game.
Oh, I see. Go ahead.
One version to learn American Sign Language and a second version to learn Tunisian Sign Language. There is two versions of MemoSign on tuniesigner.com.
Okay, so let me, for 1 second, I know Steve has it up there actually. You do, don't you, Steve? But let me go to share screen myself just because I've become so used to this experience. And can you see my screen now?
Yes.
And I have gone to your web page that I designed, and I come down to the bottom of your abstract, which is excellent. And notice how I put a link, and it says Memo Sign Game. So then I click on that link, and it should take me, hopefully, to it. And this takes us first to the Toonie Sign website, isn't that right?
Yes.
Do you want to talk about this right now and show people? Should I click on, what should I click on? Go down to Memo Sign?
Just, I have provided a short description for the game and the tooling. Yes, the first image is it's a link for the Memo Sign or TSL, Tunisian Sign Language, and the second image is a link to the Memo Sign for ISL. Just click in the image of Memo Sign ISL. We will find the game. Yes.
Okay, I did, and let's see what happens. And it's starting. You can see there's a little wheel. That means it's processing, I'm sure. And
you must download the game.
Of course. Yeah, so you can see everybody. It's loading with the blue line there. You can see my mouse is pointing at it. And it's a wonderful game. I tried using it myself, and I learned a lot. I love your avatar. He makes me happy when he signs something. It's coming. Okay, tell us what to do, Yusufa.
That's it. There is a menu. You can just click in one item. Numbers. There is an item for numbers, to learn numbers or to learn the name of animals. Yes, you can show that there is two groups of cards, blue cards and green cards. The blue cards holds the SignWriting notation, while the green cards holds the numbers. Just click on the one on blue cards, for example. Choose one. Choose one, yes, and then click. You must find the correspondence of this notation in spoken language or in writing language. Just click. You must find its correspondence.
So I know it's that. So now it's not 50. That's for sure.
Number 3. Yes.
So
when you click over a blue card, the interpretation of the sign will start.
Yeah, there it is. Very good. That's outstanding. The avatar is so clear. Yes.
Choose another one. You must search.
I know. I got to start searching. And let's see, what's this? This is 20. Yeah.
20.
He knows how to do ASL. This guy's smart. That's 20. Here's 21. And he does 21. It's very beautiful. So then I know how, oh, I saw that. There was 80 somewhere. I think it was here. No, that's 50. Oh, darn. If I go back to 80.
It's an extension of memory match games. So you just memorize the place of the interpretation, the notation, the SignWriting notation, and its notation in writing language.
That's right. It gives me a chance to search and find what matches. Now I know that. If I go back to here, maybe I could know. But I saw. Yes, go ahead.
The fourth one. Click in the fourth card, blue card. No, in the other side.
Over here? Yeah, there's.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? Oh no, that's 44. No, that's. I understand. I'm very bad. I'm failing. I'm a failure. There's 11 down here, I think. No. So how many cards can you do when you're? There's 20. Here's 11. Okay. Well, the thing is that the avatar is doing the sign, and then you find the equivalent over here. Here's 11, and I can match that over here. I actually got one right finally. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Bravo. So now I have a score. Look at this. I've got a score over here. A time. How long it took me to get there. Is that right? And then I bet kids are better at this than I am. But this is very, very beautiful. Really, really perfect. And so to go back, I go return. Now I could test animals.
To choose another item. Colors, alphabetic letters. So what?
So in the beginning, it's simply a guessing game as to where things might be. So as you start clicking about, this must be a giraffe. There's the, I even guessed it this time. That's unusual. But that's beautiful. And the drawings are very attractive. So if I go
it's an amazing game to motivate deaf learners to learn SignWriting notation.
Yes.
This is the objective of our work.
I love it. I love this. I think it's beautiful. Here we have a cow, it looks like to me, or a bull. Of course, Adam knows sign language better than I do. But that's a horse. So, and I guess you can't do it quite like that. You've got to find one at a time. You can't just keep searching around. But this is excellent. So now if I go back to return, I would then get my mouse to do this. There we go. If I went to ABC, now I would be looking for the letters of the alphabet. That's the letter T. So then, of course, in the beginning, whoops, I didn't do that correctly. That's correct. So now let me go here. Now that's an F. So I'm looking for an F, but I didn't find it. I found a W. Do you find that the children have to take time to find what they need? Oh, I remember now. I remember this goes over here. I did it, didn't I? Yeah. Yay, I got something. Okay, so then go ahead, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you, Yusra. What did you say?
I said that the concept of the game is very easy. Anyone can play the game and learn the SignWriting.
Of course, obviously, that is absolutely true. And the only other thing I'd like to ask is if I kept sharing my screen for a few minutes, would we be able to see the Tuni Signer program from last year that you presented? It is such an amazing program. I'm so impressed with it. And I can see that Steve has it there. And I don't mean to, we have two share screens going on, but for one moment, I'm just good. Is it okay that we go to Tuni Signer, or would you like to see more of Memo Sign? What more would you like to show us?
So, what do you prefer? I give a brief description in Tuni Signer.
Look, there's colors, everybody. I'm so sorry. I'm so excited about this. I'm playing the game. Oh, that's yellow. No, that's not going to work. So here is red. That's blue. Okay, so you can see really, yeah, and the sign. I think the most impressive part to this, most people may not realize what we're dealing with. Look how the avatar is so well programmed. I want to thank you for doing such a beautiful job with the actual avatar programming. That's the hard part. I mean, this looks like, oh, it's fun, but people don't realize how much work you must have put into this job. And as well with Muhammad Ali, I bet it's equally as many hours you put in, isn't that right? So what would you like to show now, Yusra? Should I keep showing my screen like this? So we can see my screen? Or what more would you like me to show?
I would thank you for this precious occasion to present our work. We all SignWriting lists to test our game and give us their comments. That's it. To ameliorate our game and to develop other games, educational games.
Well, thank you too. And by the way, you just got a nice message from Ingvild Roald, who is a teacher of deaf people in Norway. Actually, Ingvild is also a linguist and has done work with SignWriting way back. I mean, she and I know each other since, oh, maybe the 1980s. I can't remember. But anyway, hi, Ingvild. And Ingvild just wrote you a message saying, I'm watching this and enjoying it. I'm so impressed. And I know that even Stefan Borman, who, as you know, is also a teacher of deaf children, he asked how to get it. He wanted to use it. So we're definitely following your work. And I'd like to point out that I went, Muhammad Ali, to your biography on the web that we posted about you, and I was so impressed when I looked at your link and could see that you've done so many games already, haven't you? You've programmed other games as well. Isn't that true? I don't know whether... Mohammed, can you hear me?
Yes. Could you please repeat your question?
Of course. I wanted to bring you into the conversation and tell you that when I was doing your webpage, I, of course, read your biography. And you had a link.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you so much.
You did a lot of games. I was very impressed with all the games for children that you've developed already. Isn't that true? That you've done
yes.
That? Tell us a little bit about your work. Is this a part of your degree? Memo sign? Hard for you to hear me, I can tell.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Could you please repeat? Yeah.
Maybe Adam, can you maybe you could hear Adam better? Is this a part of your degree? Maybe I should put this on, I don't know.
Yes, of course. I'm interested in developing educational games, especially educational games for this new area in our laboratory is to design and develop educational game for deaf learners. We will also create a game generator that help teacher to create easily the game. For example, to enter just the word, and automatically it will be converted on SignWriting using models that developed by Yusra. And the aim is to help teacher and also to motivate deaf learners, especially learners who belong to so-called game generation. This generation, those learners who are raised on digital world, native speakers of language of computers, video games, internet, and they are accustomed to high level of motivation and engagement. These learners, including deaf learners, found the traditional learning is very disengaged and boring. So one of the effective way to motivate learners is by using educational games. The educational games can consume the attention of learners to increase their motivation and their engagement to learn, especially SignWriting.
It's very exciting work, and it looks like you're working on many projects. So, but it's all based on what Yusra has started, isn't that right, with the SML and the avatar? So you have Tuni Signer. Can we use that right now? here in the United States with ASL? Yusra?
Tunisigner includes, Tunisigner includes 4 dictionary for to interpret sign language notation. 1 dictionary for ISL, TSL, Tunisian Sign Language, Brazilian Sign Language, Egyptian Sign Language, and French Sign Language. That's it. But I have cooperated with Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali, the main interest of Muhammad Ali is to develop educational game for normal learners. But I suggest to him to make a cooperation and develop a new educational game for deaf learners. So the Muhammad Ali, his interest is to develop the educational game, and then we have added new features to this game. Is the sign writing notation, the avatar technology, just the interpretation of each sign, and that's it. But just the cooperation is the memo sign. Yes, the result of our cooperation is the memo sign game.
I understand.
Muhammad Ali do not develop educational game for hearing impaired people. Just his interest is to develop educational game for normal learners and not for learners with special needs. Can you understand me?
Yes, I do understand. I did notice that Muhammad Ali, some of his games were not connected to deaf education necessarily, but nonetheless, Muhammad Ali has developed many games. And now you're working together on memo sign. Yes, I understand that. And I'm very impressed with both of your works. I mean, it's tremendous. We're so lucky. Gosh, we're so lucky. And to see that video of deaf children using it, I think that was the best thing you could have done, because it makes you realize that it really can be used. You know, it's one thing if we adults just sit here and play around. But it's another thing when we go into a classroom and we can see the children using it. And I think they felt very positive about it, so you should be commended for this. It's a great job. So what is the future? What do you want to do in the future, Yusra and Muhammad Ali?
Yes, we aim to develop a generated tool, a tool to generate educational game. This tool will provide to teachers to make or to add their courses or their special notations to generate after that learning game to teach these new notations or these new vocabularies to their learners. Just we will add a part in the game to make to let the teachers to add their specific notation or courses.
So the teachers can get involved and actually work with the game themselves and create a game that is just for what they want to teach at the moment. Is that what you're thinking? So it would be flexible. Is that? Yeah, that's good.
Yes.
Is that a continuation of memo sign, or is it a separate game? Is it the same?
No, we will work at this time on memo sign, and after that we will develop and new games. Maybe.
So if you have in other words, right now, if I wanted to use the game with some students, I would need to use what you've already, of course, given us, which is wonderful, the ASL version, because that's what I happen to know better than Tunisian Sign Language. But I'm sure you're planning other sign languages as well. You already said that. With Tuni Signer, you have lots of dictionaries. Oh, that was so exciting to hear all the languages. But going back to memo sign, in the future, it would be possible for me to change it and to be able to put in new data, new signs, if I wanted to put in new symbols or something. Okay,
yes,
good.
We can.
That's a good. That will be a good addition. That's really great. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing your future work. So I'm really glad I wrote to you this year, because if I hadn't written to you, I don't know whether we would be talking to each other right now at this presentation. And when you told me all about memo sign, I said, oh, please come and present, because we would love to hear about it. And I'm really glad you showed your beautiful work. Adam, do you have any questions for Yusra or Muhammad Ali, because Adam teaches American Sign Language, but not to deaf children, to adults, to older people. And do you think, Adam, that the memo sign game in ASL might be useful for people who are learning sign writing within your American Sign Language classes? I know that there aren't that many who do that, but there might be some.
It could be used for some of the beginners classes. I could see it being used, yes.
Yes. So, Yusra and Muhammad Ali, have you ever thought about adults, older people learning American Sign Language for the first time? Maybe they're training to be interpreters, or maybe they're just simply taking it as a foreign language class like that. They still need to learn how to read and write it. And I would think the memo sign game would have use even outside the children's classroom. Just a point. I thought you might think about that, because I know Adam, I think if we tested Adam, let's see if it goes well. I bet it will. So, would you like to say anything more before we, I think I'm going to be saying goodbye soon. We have about 5 more minutes left, or maybe 8 more minutes. What more should you tell us about memo sign?
So we are very thankful for giving us this opportunity to present our work.
Of course.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to you. And I want you to know, Ingrid Roald writes, she just wrote a message. She said, the avatar is really impressive. And I presume that the learning for motivation, yes, she said, very impressive.
Thank you so much.
Yes, go ahead. Yes, Yusra.
Thank you, dear Valerie and your team, Adam, Steve, and the other mailing list. So we are very happy to present our work in the SignWriting Symposium. And we will, if there is a second version of SignWriting Symposium the next years, we will participate in it.
Oh, I'm glad. Wonderful. That's a good tradition. A good tradition. Well, thank you. And I also want everyone to know that I'm going to be closing a few minutes early. But I want to thank everybody for coming to the SignWriting Symposium 2015. And this is the last presentation of this year's symposium. I want to thank Adam Frost for running the show and starting all the pictures and getting everything working. And thank you, Steve Slavinsky, for your wonderful presentations of SignPuddle and SignMaker 2015 and the SignWriting Stack. And thank you for showing some of the slides and the videos this year. We've had a magnificent year in 2015. SignWriting has spread to even more countries, and there are these little groups of people writing sign language all over the world now. And one of the biggest developments in 2015 is the development of the TrueType fonts that Steve has developed, which makes it possible someday to use Unicode 8. You see, SignWriting symbols themselves have now been officially entered into Unicode version 8, which became available this summer, just now. And it still has a lot of work. We still need to get Unicode to be able to do layout and things like that. But without Steve Slavinsky's TrueType fonts, we wouldn't even be able to see the symbols. So I wanted you to know about the fact that SignWriting now has this universal TrueType font that can be used in your programming. I don't know whether it's useful in avatar programming, because I don't know anything about that, but we do have more sophisticated software continually being developed. So I'm hoping that the different programmers who come to the SignWriting Symposium will help each other, share information. That is the whole point of the SignWriting Symposium. And teachers also, the wonderful presentations that we had by Dr. Abu Shara from Jordan and Saudi Arabia, and by Rafaela Cota Silva about teaching, and of course James Shepard Cable discussing the grammar of sign languages. Every presentation had great meaning, and we are going to be having it interpreted in different sign languages. I'm hoping to get different individual videos of different interpreters interpreting everybody's presentations, and then I'll try to create a web page where I'll put all the videos side by side, and the person can listen to the presentation for spoken language and then find the sign language they want to match. and watch it in sign language if that's what is needed. We also hope to put in captions. So I'm going to say goodbye to everybody for this year, and thank you so much, Yusra and Muhammad Ali.
Thank you.
Adam Frost and Steve Slavinsky and everybody who presented here. Have a wonderful 2015. See you in 2016. Bye-bye.
Bye.